Okay, I think I'm pretty sure we're live. Are we live, gang? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you dig it? Right? Can you process what I am bringing to you? Okay. That's the question at hand today. Oh my goodness, it's how's everyone's new year going so far? It's only the second day. Um lots more of it to go, so I hope that so far is treating you well. Cardis, thank you for the Prime sub. I really do appreciate that. It really does help. Look, all the subs, all the bits, all the donations, all the super chats, all of these help support the channel. We're going into a new year. I got some great content planned for you guys. A wealth of different topics. Tomorrow, we're going to have Loaderbox on, gang. We're going to talk about grooming gangs. There was recently by a political figure in Britain who gave a speech that's kind of sent the whole thing into a tizzy. We're going to cover that tomorrow. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. We're going to talk about how that whole scandal was allowed to happen. Crazy shit, right? No, they don't run around brushing people's hair. That's not the kind. We wish that was the kind of grooming that was going on, but that is not the kind of grooming that was going on. Again, we'll get into details tomorrow. That we need to cover, but yeah. Next week we're gonna have. I know some of you guys are gonna hate this. We're gonna have some D&D topics. Okay, colonialism and evil in D&D. And that should be fun. I hope you guys will tune in for that as well. We're gonna have Harmony Ginger on, a personal favorite. Okay, we're gonna have Jack, Chronicler of the Northland, will be joining us, and we'll see who else manages to jump on into the discussion. It should be fun. 2025, A Gay Odyssey. Nice to see you, Mark Strike. This conversation is about to be crazy. I hope. Well, I don't know about crazy, but it's an interesting topic. Today, boys and girls, tonight, I should say, we're going to be talking about preferences in dating through the lens of a recent discourse that has been going on. Many women are saying they refuse to date bisexual men. Is that a form of homophobia? Is that because of bigotry? We're going to talk about it. Namely, I'm going to be hosting a debate on the subject. Portland is Burning, who will be joining us shortly, says that yes, it is bigotry, it is homophobic, and it is something, that is because of homophobia. Well, Quibbles disagrees, says it's just a preference, says it's okay to have that preference. And we'll talk about it. It's not a panel. It's a one-on-one debate. I don't usually do these, but I figured why not? New year, new things. So we're going to try it. Is the debate specific to homophobia or all forms of bigotry? Asking for a fat friend. Well, that will come up, right? That's part of what we're going to be discussing. But give me 1 second. Let me see if they're here yet. They are. Okay. Let's bring them in. Let's start the show. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome, friends.
My headphones, I apologize. Give me 15 seconds.
Okay, take your time, take your time.
Should I just leave?
No, you're still here.
Here.
Portland, we cannot hear you at all. Well, we can hear you. We know you're talking, but you're like so quiet. Yeah, like that's super quiet, man.
What's going on with the settings? I just want my headphones.
Gang, welcome to live tech support the stream.
Exactly, I'm sorry.
Both of you.
Quibbles didn't have any trouble hearing me, so I'm not sure if it's...
You were all the way up on my Discord, buddy.
I'm all the way up on my end too, so hold on a second.
Oh, it's because you're not talking into your mic. When you bring it to your mouth and talk into it, we can hear you.
Better?
Yes.
Cool.
But when you're talking like this far away, it drops off immensely, and I don't know why. But
Noted.
fair enough.
I'll stay close.
It's okay. How's your New Year's going, buddy?
Good. We're having a rare day without the kids. We dropped them off with my wife's friend a little while ago, and so house hasn't been this quiet in years, honestly.
Oh,
How's
man.
about you? Doing well so
it's about
far?
to get noisy up in this house, but no. New Year's is going fine. We had a great show today. I'm sure yesterday, and I'm sure today will be a great show as well. Once Quibbles gets his stuff together, we'll start the show.
I can't seem to make my headphone work, but if this works, then I'll just do this. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
All right, if this works, then I'll just do this. I'm sorry. I was trying to get my headphones to work, but I guess not.
You know what? We take what we can get. You are, once you get your camera settled, you're sideways right now.
I am sideways.
No, you're fine. You're fine now.
No longer sideways?
No longer sideways. You're full in the up position. Okay.
In the upward position. That is the ideal position to be in.
Okay. Let's start this show. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you today? Recently, we've had some discourse over preferences in dating. When does a preference become a bigotry? And we're going to talk about it tonight through the lens of homophobia. Many women, there's been surveys done recently, say that they simply will not date a bisexual man. There was a tweet recently, and I'll just read you this tweet that says as follows. It's homophobic for a straight woman to be repulsed by the thought of being in a relationship with a man who likes men now? ? I don't want a man who likes men. I don't want to marry or reproduce with a man who likes men. That makes me homophobic? Are y'all fucking serious right now? And that's the question. Is it, by necessity, homophobic if a woman refuses to date a bisexual man simply for the reason that they are bisexual? We're going to pass it first to Portland. Introduce yourself. You got a little longer than normal since there's only two of you here. Introduce your thoughts on the topic, and then we'll pass it to Quibbles. Go ahead, Portland. Start us off.
Cool. Nice to see you as always, Wick. Quibbles, nice to have our first one-on-one chat. I think that the answer to the question is pretty obviously yes. There's at least some element of homophobia at play if you find someone otherwise like attractive and desirable, but the mere fact that they are attracted to both men and women turns you off of even the prospect of having a relationship with them. As far as like having monogamous relationships with bisexual people, I don't think that there's any difference between like monogamously dating a bisexual person versus a heterosexual person. I think that in the conversation that Quibbles and I had on Twitter, he had demonstrated that there's probably that like this opinion comes from some like preconceived biases about the way like the differences between heterosexual and bisexual people. I don't think that there's really any hard and fast set of characteristics that differentiate the two aside from their sexual predilections that is going to like map onto one group or the other and like differentiate them cleanly. And in the conversations that I've had with people, it sounds like there's just some beliefs about bisexual people that they have like this set of behaviors and this set of like social norms and stuff that are fundamentally different from, or in some cases incompatible with, heterosexual people. So I want to just have this conversation. I don't know how we're going to stretch it out to 2 full hours. I hope that we're able to get into some meaty territory, but I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to hearing what Quibbles has to say.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. And it'll last as long as it's lasts. Don't feel like you need to stretch it. If the conversation ends after 30 minutes to an hour, we'll just do other things. I'll do call-ins or something, right? So don't worry about it. Quibbles, go ahead.
Okay, so when we talk about bigotry, just sort of in general, obviously, if I were to say that I'm not willing to like share community with men or with women or with any number of different groups, that would be, of course, bigoted. But I would assume that you would agree that simply to be a heterosexual or to be a homosexual is not bigotry. And so the question seems to, so what that implies to me at sort of that base level is that to be physically attracted to someone or to not be physically attracted to someone, I think is an acceptable reason to like take them out of your life, or not out of your life, but rather to take them out of your dating pool, right? It is acceptable to just base your dating pool on whether or not you're physically attracted. At a base level, you are not entitled to my body. I'm not entitled to your body. That's true across every single person in all cases. And so this is not, I assume, on your end, something a matter of like whether or not you're obligated to, I would hope, date people who are bisexuals, but rather it's a question of whether or not you think that it's like morally queasy, or like what exactly is your contention?
Well, I think in the exchange that we had previously, I tried to explain my feelings that like it's perfectly okay to have preferences, and in some cases, especially preferences that take the form of like exclusions to entire groups, those preferences are going to manifest as prejudices. And I don't think that being prejudicial or discriminatory in the way that you select dating partners is necessarily bad. It's not something that I think you should be judged harshly for, but I think that there is a lack of self-awareness in the sentiment that like I exclude men who are bisexual from the dating pool fundamentally, but I'm not homophobic because I have this like set of characteristics that I associate with homophobia and bigotry that I
Yeah.
don't
So
identify with personally. And
I guess
I
the
think
question,
that's
like,
where
if
the
I'm
cognitive dissonance comes in. And that's kind of what I think needs to be taken apart.
so if I'm a gay man, am I potentially misogynist by virtue of being gay?
Certainly not. I think there's like a certain like misogynistic tendencies that people have across the board, but I don't think that like your sexual preferences in like on that binary indicate a bias.
Okay. If I am interested in short women or tall women, does that mean that I have some sort of bigotry against short women?
No, there's
How,
going to
how about
be
fat women?
no, there's a set of like physical characteristics that you're describing here
Okay.
that
So
don't
okay,
go.
so physical characteristics. How about I am Jewish, I want her to also look Jewish. Is that okay?
Did you say look Jewish?
Yeah.
Can
Ethnically
you
Jewish. Yeah.
elaborate?
There are people who have Jewish, like ethnically Jewish noses. There are people who have ethnically Jewish. There are ethnically Jewish features. Is it acceptable as a black person to want to date black people?
I think if you like specifically want to date black
Hold up,
people
hold
or
up, hold
any
up, hold up,
specific
hold up.
category,
I
go ahead.
gotta know. What does a Jewish person look like ethnically?
I wasn't
It
gonna
depends on
pull a
what
deep
kind of.
thread, but
There are Ethiopian. The answer is there's Ethiopian Jews, there's Sephardi Jews, there are Ashkenazi Jews. We look different, obviously. We all come back from sort of the same sort of baseline, but we've sort of evolved into different directions. But yeah, you can absolutely say that there's a person who does look. My hair is ethnically Jewish. It looks Jewish.
You know what?
I think
Nope,
it's safe to say that.
we're not diving deeper down this rabbit hole. We're gonna keep
I
going.
think it's
We're
safe
gonna
to
keep
say
going.
that
I
there
don't know
are
this is what it is. But
that
I guess a
people can.
question. I maybe to get to the heart of this, right? Maybe to get to the heart of this. Um.
Yeah.
So what? And this is a question for you, Portland, right? So fair enough. Physical characteristics, you're okay with excluding. What about behaviors?
Yeah.
League of Legends. Would you ever date a League of Legends player? Probably not, right?
No.
Does that mean you're bigoted towards them? No.
Yes.
Well, you should be, right?
no, this means that like I associate a certain set of behaviors with being a League of Legends player, and those characteristics, those behaviors are what I find it undesirable and don't want to like partner with. So back to like that kind of gets to the initial point quite well, because in part of our exchange you stated that there were like a set of behaviors and like cultural differences between
Yeah.
bisexual and straight men that like I think is a really really silly thing to say as like
Well, so
uh,
let's just.
as a general way to describe groups of people that don't outwardly convey their sexuality in any visible and like directly noticeable way, I think that it's really interesting that you would ascribe like different sets of social characteristics to them when the presentation of that trait is so discrete, if there is any at all.
Okay, so I mean, we were sort of joking about the video game. I don't remember what video game what was said there. But like, okay, I'm a healthy person. I want the person that I date to be healthy also, but I also have specific versions of what I want their health to look like, right? I don't want someone who's a runner. I want someone who's a walker who, like, I just got back from a walk. It was like a 4 or 5 mile walk with my dog. I want someone who's willing to go on 4 or 5 mile walks with my dog with me, right? And so someone who like lifts weights, setting aside what they look like, setting aside what they are as human beings, that's just like not what I'm seeking in the same way that I am seeking someone to walk with me. Is that acceptable? Am I bigoted? Of course not, right? I'm allowed to have those preferences. And so even though I was joking about the video game, like, you are allowed to have preferences about like the video games people like. You are allowed to have preferences that I want them to be a Star Wars nerd just like I am, right? Doesn't mean I'm bigoted against Star Trek people.
Okay, I'm going to need you to do something for me that I think is going to really help me figure out what direction to take this conversation in. Can you explain to me, like, what would be some of the day-to-day differences between dating a bisexual man and a heterosexual man in a monogamous relationship from the standpoint of the female partner? Go.
Okay, there's 2 answers. The first answer is that when we're talking about dating in general, a lot of people are trying to figure out ways to sift, right? We're trying to seek imperfect ways to find there's a giant pool of tens of millions of people who are potential partners, and I'm going to say something like, hey, I want them to have the same religious affiliation with me. There's lots of other people who could potentially become religiously affiliated in accordance with my own views, or I could potentially become a perfectly happy Catholic or whatever it might be. But it's a reasonable thing to sift by saying I want them to be Jewish. It's a reasonable thing to sift by saying I want them to.
Hold on. You're doing that thing again, where like a bunch of the things that you're pointing out.
So I'm saying.
No, there's a validity to. I'm sorry about the lighting weirdness. I'm in my.
You're in your bisexual lighting era. I get. Go ahead.
Exactly. My, you're pointing out a bunch of things that have like, or gesturing to things that have like inform your lifestyle, your day-to-day behaviors, and like your greater like philosophical understandings of life as people. But like none of those things.
Not exclusively.
Okay, maybe I can help.
Talking about like religion
not
and.
Exclusively.
One at a time, first of all. One at a time, first of all.
One at a time, first of all. Place to start then.
But maybe I can help. Let me just ask you clearly. This is to Quibbles. What behaviors do bisexual men do that are different from heterosexual?
So the answer is none across the board, but many
in general,
as a general thing.
As
a general matter, like you jokingly said the bisexual lighting, but like unironically, it is true that bisexual places, the spaces that are designed by bisexual people, tend to look different than the spaces that are designed by heterosexual people, and specifically by heterosexual men. That is not true across the board. There are obviously exceptions. There are lots of exceptions. But if you're seeking to sift, it is something that you should probably be aware of, that, for example, bisexual men tend to interact even platonically differently with other men than to heterosexual men. Bisexual men tend
no. Examples.
Okay, sure. Yeah, please. I would say that there is an undergirding form of sexuality that operates in most conversation, and particularly in conversations between people who are conceptually desirable to one another, regardless of whether they're seeking to actually have sex with each other. They interact differently.
And this is, I realize, like, maybe there are some ways that this is going to be like intuitively obvious, but can you describe for me some ways that that's going to like manifest generally across the board? Because I don't have conversation. I've never had a conversation with a man before where I've walked away and been like, there was kind of a noticeable undercurrent of sexuality there. I think he might be bisexual. It has literally like never.
I actually don't believe you.
Mind. And I have conversations with lots of men.
I don't believe you. When you say that, I just don't believe you that you believe that. There's no undercurrent of like sexuality to any conversation you've had with a person who may potentially be interested in you, but you weren't able to tell. Really? Never once.
Not men. No, the men that I've had like interactions with where there was a sexual undertone to it, it was pretty it was pretty forward in its like conveyance. There wasn't any like ambiguity about what they were trying to convey. And
No one's ever like.
I'm sure that maybe a couple. I'm sure that there's been plenty of interactions I've had with bisexual men and never walked away with any kind of indication that there was.
Okay, let's frame it this way. Have you had an interaction with a man who was not seeking to sleep with you, but you found it evident was interested in you sexually and was like appreciating you as a sexual object without trying to fuck you?
Not really. No.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
I just don't believe you. That's like no. You not walk.
I'm asking you to like provide some kind of like.
Are you asking him to hit on you right now? What's going on?
No, I'm asking you to like give me like what are the differences for like men who are bisexual and heterosexual, like day to day. What are your differences from?
And I'm saying the way that men interact with other men is different, not across the board, but at a generalized level, when we are or are not sexually interested in the people, right? So, like, when you're talking about the way that you talk to your waitress or waiter, I'm sure that you've been, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but sometimes it's not uncomfortable. You've been in an environment where there's sort of a light undergirding sexuality in the interaction. Say it again.
Stop using the word undergirding. It's really
okay. I'm trying.
Is it causing you? Is it awakening feelings in you? What's going on?
It's an uncomfortable word in.
Okay. The reason I'm using it is because I'm trying to say that it's not overt, right? There's a plausible deniability to it when people are being vaguely flirtatious but not crossing a boundary with their waiter or with their customer in the context of like a restaurant environment. That's something that is regularly occurring between male patrons or male waiters and female patrons slash waitresses, right? In both directions, it happens all the time, and it's perfectly normal and regular. It is also something that happens less frequently, but still quite frequently, certainly on a daily basis in most restaurants, between male patrons and male waiters. Or in a lesbian equivalent of that, right? That doesn't mean that you're trying to literally have sex with your waiter. Of course not. But it does mean that there's an undergirding sexuality. I'm sorry, I'm going to avoid the word. There's an implicit sexuality to that interaction, which is not actually being sort of acted out. It's not being done in practice, but it does imply something both about the person who themselves is involved in the act, but also it has something to do with the way that people understand the relationship that they are affording to their partner. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think that we've like, and maybe this is partially my fault, I think we've kind of happened into an unhelpful tangent here where we're like, what I'm really trying to get at here is that while these behaviors may be really common and well understood in like your average person, they are much, much, much less prevalent in people in committed monogamous relationships.
No.
Yes, absolutely. Like,
no, it's not true. People are still
wait, hold on. You talked a lot. I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes. Just hear me out. There is no way that you can tell me that the level of like interpersonal like sexual tension and the dynamics at play there in everyday interactions between eligible people and people in committed monogamous relationships are one-to-one, like the same level of sexual undercurrent to the conversations and interactions they have. That's just not true. And I know that from experience because there is an aspect of the like voluntary nature to this wherein when you are in a committed monogamous relationship you intentionally modify your behavior so as to limit the level of like sexual intent that you would be otherwise conveying to people who you might otherwise consider like eligible partners. There's a major difference in the way that you treat these interactions when you're in a committed monogamous relationship versus when you're not in an exclusive one. So I think that you're really undermining that in the way that you're describing the like day-to-day personal dynamics.
Have you ever witnessed a flirty grandpa?
Yeah, and I think in most of those cases where I've chalked it up to like a level of like folksy and fairly
Sure,
harmless but like
absolutely. Yes.
problematic behavior that stems from a different time and a different cultural understanding about the way that men and women could interact in so far as the way men could be outwardly flirtatious to women that they weren't,
Sure.
partnered with.
So part of what you said there was a judgment of you think that it's outdated and all of that because presumably you don't think that it's something that they should be doing to wait staff specifically because wait staff are there for a paycheck, which I think is probably accurate in the case of someone who is there for a paycheck. But there are also like grandpas who just like go through life and just are like jokingly flirtatious with an obvious implication that like nothing is going to happen between us, of course, right? And yet they are jokingly flirtatious with adult women, but women in their 20s and 30s, right?
I mean, there are a lot of those, like, seemingly harmless grandpa types that turn out to be sexual predators, murderers, and
Fine.
people who
I'm
otherwise
assuming
seem like perfectly harmless in their just generally flirty manner.
Okay,
But
for the
like,
purpose of this
there are
conversation, hold on, just real quick. For the purpose of the conversation, we're gonna leave out the active predators. We understand that
yeah,
that's a thing, that happens, but we're talking. I think that the big question today is when does this preference become a bigotry and why? And I guess maybe to kind of like short circuit the dance, Portland. You understand that even if you're in a monogamous relationship, you can be tempted by the opposite sex. Even if you are married, even if you have kids, even if you've been dating the same person for a year, sometimes you go and you see a woman, you hit it off, and there is a potential, right, for people to be unfaithful. Do you not think that perhaps it's not bigotry, but
it's
someone does not want to have to compete not only with 50% of the population who is the opposite gender of their spouse, but all of them, right? Like literally every single person on the face of this earth. Is that
no, 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 no.
bigotry?
That's totally, if that's the way that you want to frame it, and that's the way that you want to kind of orient your objection, like that's actually totally fine. The reason that I engaged in this conversation initially was particularly triggered by the term repulsive, and I was pretty deliberate about using that term in my objection to it too. If you find the idea of dating of like having a heterosexual relationship with a bisexual man repulsive, then yeah, you're probably homophobic on some level because you're having like a disgust response to the idea. You're not of showing an aversion because of like some fear of enhanced
is it
competition. Does that make
is it
sense?
is it uh, homophobic is it like misogynist for a gay man to say that he's repulsed by the idea of having sex with a woman?
No, because a gay man's not attracted to women.
Okay, but like when he says that he's repulsed by women, he's not saying that women are repulsive. He's saying that he personally is repulsed, right?
By women, by the
Yeah.
physical,
So,
by the
right.
like the
So
physical package of a woman.
let me
Yes.
let me finish. When someone says that they're repulsed by bisexual men, they're saying something about themselves. They're not saying that bisexual men are repulsive. They're saying that they're repulsed, right?
By what?
By certain um uh
Keep going.
coded
It's like we're gonna reach
yeah,
the logical
by,
conclusion here.
yeah, by certain coded by mannerisms that coincide with being a bisexual, right?
Coded
Like
mannerisms
if a
such
if a if
as
a
so
if a person is gay, we say gay, but I'm very confident that even the gayest man in the history of the world, there exists some either trans person or just very butch person that they would potentially be interested in having sex with, even if that person is a woman, right? But we'd still call them gay because they're saying gay is shorthand for the broad structure of their sexuality. When someone says that they're repulsed uh, uh, by bisexual people, they're saying something as shorthand because they're talking about a repulse towards a particular like set of mannerisms, right?
Okay, let me read a couple super chats, make some money, then I'll let you respond. $5 from Zephyr Hash to say it's not the act itself, it's the reasoning behind the act that determines the bigotry. There you go. I've solved it. Zephyr W and the stream. And then $2 more from Zephyr Hash to say I am repulsed by dumb women. Is that misogynistic?
Okay, cool. I think that you're over intellectualizing this argument like you were in the Twitter conversation we were having. So I want to try and I want to present it like this. Say that a woman is like meets a guy at a bar, they're getting on great, they have a lot of chemistry, she finds him attractive, they're gonna go home together. And then on their way out of the bar, he bumps into a guy, they say hi to each other, and she's like, oh yeah, I used to date him. And she's, wait, never mind, I'm not going home with you. I am repulsed by the mere idea of going home with you. What's this woman exhibiting? Is this like a prejudice? Is this just a harmless preference? Is this like a level of like prejudice that you would feel is like perfectly appropriate? Like
she's experienced
what? You cut out. Can you repeat that for the audience?
Yeah. She's experienced a turnoff.
A turnoff that you to this point have said can be like it is mapped onto a bunch of like coded mannerisms and discrete behaviors that would lead someone to feel that they're going to be like incompatible with each other on a romantic or physical level.
Okay,
but you haven't explained what any of those behaviors are. And so I've tried to trying to remove all of that from the playing field because I think it's irrelevant by giving you an example where they have already established a strong physical like sense of compatibility and chemistry, and the only thing that has changed in the equation is the knowledge now that this man has a history of being bisexual, or at least like has dated one man.
Sure. So the answer is that there's two different things that can happen in that instance. One version of the events that you just described could be understood to be a turnoff, and another version of what you just described could be understood to be a red flag. So in the case of the turnoff, it just might be that she doesn't like it, right? And it makes her feel uncomfortable in the same way that it might make her feel uncomfortable if he put on a bunch of weight, or it might make her feel uncomfortable if she found out that actually he's not a devout Christian or whatever it might be. The other version of events is that it might be a red flag.
You can't weasel out of that one. That's let's pause and put a pin in that one and dig into it, because what you're describing.
Well, can I finish?
Let's dig into number one.
Can I lay out the two, and then we can start?
Okay, fine.
The second is that it's a red flag. So a lot of things are not in and of themselves a bad thing for you to do, but they might be a reason for concern. So, for example, it's not morally wrong to like punch your wall, for example. It's a piece of drywall. You can punch your wall. It's okay. But if I found out that, someone who I was dating had a bunch of holes in their walls because they punched their wall so often, that's a red flag. That's not a person you should date, right? It's not morally wrong to punch the wall, but clearly you have a problem with anger issues, and I don't want to be the next thing that you punch, right? So if I found out that you dated this guy and that you're bisexual, that in and of itself might not be a turnoff, but it might be a red flag in the same way, not because it in and of itself is a turnoff, but rather because it may be and likely is associated with broader relations that you have with men going into these cases that I might be concerned about.
In both of these cases, you are begging the question, and that is to say you are loading the equation with the fundamental assumption that there is some some understood set of behaviors that can be ascribed to bisexual men that cannot be ascribed to heterosexual men, aside from having sex with men. You have yet to provide any sort of.
I'm not saying
between these two, but in both number one and number two here, it's baked in as the implication that there is a set of characteristics that this implies that those are actually the characteristics that the woman does.
Let him finish. So for the audience, just real quick, we gotta let Portland finish for the audience's sake. You get it, but they might not, and that's why I'm gonna try to err on the side of letting people finish their thoughts. But carry on.
whether a person is a Christian or is not a Christian, in and of itself, all that means is they either do or do not accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior, right? That's all it means. However, if a person is saying, I want to be with a God-fearing man, I want to be with a Christian, as many people do, that is not something that's unreasonable because they're using it as a sifting mechanism, because they also are presumably the kind of person who doesn't just want you to be someone who says I am a Christian, but also someone who's like currently not in jail, who's like currently like go down the list of a bunch of things that are broadly true of Christians, that are broadly positive attributes therein, but are associated, right? They're not universal. You could potentially be a good person who is everything that a Christian would expect it to be, other than the actual Christian part. But that is still a reasonable thing to do as a sifting mechanism, right?
I think that there's a difference between applying a filtering mechanism in advance of like interacting with people like you would on a
Yeah.
dating website versus using like having it in the back of your mind as like a discrete deal breaker regardless of any other set of behaviors that you observe. And because you kind of have, I feel like your argument keeps pushing us in this direction. I really need you to explain to me, like, beyond the like eligibility factor that Wick pointed out earlier, that you would have to compete with not the half of the dating pool but the entirety of the dating pool. Beyond that, what are the behavioral differences, the day-to-day differences in having a monogamous relationship with a bisexual man versus a heterosexual man? Because that is like where I think you can point to some really obvious biases that are, like I said, built in, that you're kind of begging the question around. But if you can point to some actual like behaviors that I can visibly like map
Sure.
onto bisexual people and not
Yeah.
Well,
heterosexual
if
people,
I may,
that would be helpful.
before we go on, because Kay in my chat had a good point, and I want to read that out because it's worth reading out. Give me a second. What woman doesn't want to have a partner who she cannot fulfill all their sexual desire purely due to her anatomy, right? And that's not a behavior that a gay man or a bisexual man would engage in. That has nothing to do with behavior, but it does have to do with desire. And I don't think it's necessarily bigoted to be to find that off-putting, knowing just out the gate there are things you can never do that they want to have done. I don't think that's bigotry. Why is it? Why would it be?
Well, in terms of the way, I don't want to get like too weird with this, but in terms of the ways that you can like physically engage with them, I don't think there's like that substantive a difference. In terms of the ways that like you would materially like evaluate partners, there's never going to be a person that like has all of the things that you want, and there's no thing outside of what your partner can provide to you that you would ever want or like be able to live without. So I think that it just kind of it's silly to frame it like, oh well, you have things that they fundamentally, or like you don't have things that they fundamentally need, when like that's not true. In the case of any relationship, people are always going to like have some desires outside of exactly what their partner has to offer, especially after a while in a committed relationship. But either you find ways to like creatively explore that together, or you just like live with the fact that certain sexual desires of yours might go unfulfilled throughout your life. It's not the end of the world.
Okay, so let's talk about the creatively exploring the desire. I am a woman, and I don't want to penetrate a guy's butt with a dildo, right? But I know that he wants his butt penetrated by a penis / dildo, and I don't want that. Is that a sexual incompatibility between the two of us? And is it appropriate for me to be like, hey, that's a sexual incompatibility?
I mean, it depends on, everybody has their like, this is going to be a spectrum for everybody. You're going to have things that you
Right, but
that might not be so important that you consider them deal breakers, and some people are going to have
sure.
things that they consider deal breakers on that.
But I'm more
spectrum,
compatible with a guy who doesn't want for me to explore his butthole than a man who does want me to explore his butthole, right?
Can you repeat the question?
I am more compatible with a man who does not want for me to explore his butthole than with a man who does want for me to explore his butthole. Yes?
The man who does not want his butthole explored would probably be a more compatible sexual partner for you. Yes.
Yeah. On average, is a man who is bisexual more or less likely to want his butthole explored than a heterosexual?
You're gonna make one of those faces again when I answer this, but there's not going to be like a clean.
No, fuck you. I asked about averages. Don't give me some bullshit. I asked about averages. Fuck you.
There's lots of heterosexual men that like to have their buttholes.
I didn't ask if there. I didn't ask.
Sure. No, that's true. But hold on, Portland.
Stimulated.
Engage with it. Engage with it because
yes.
Okay, let me ask you this: a heterosexual man, right? You are a woman is dating a heterosexual man. They find out that heterosexual man loves butt play. They want to be pegged. They want it bad, okay? They're begging for it. The woman finds that kind of repulsive. She doesn't like it. It turns her off, so she breaks up with them. Did the woman do anything wrong in that instance?
No.
So why is it bigotry for a woman who, again, meets a man, finds out that they're bisexual, and is like, okay, well, this isn't going anywhere, so I'm just going to end it.
Because you're making a set of assumptions that you associate with homosexual men that you assume will map onto the characteristics that the bisexual man exhibits. Hence the homophobia. I know that some people who hear that are going to say like, oh, this is bisexual erasure. Sorry, the term that kicked the conversation off was homophobic, so that's kind of what we're running with here. And I think that like that is kind of how it ends up getting compartmentalized in your brain, is that like you consider them gay men and you don't like gay men, or you don't like the gay part of them. It's not that you like have any issue with anything outside of the set of behaviors that you associate with gay men that you then attribute to them after you find out that they are bisexual. So
you're describing sifting, right? What you just described was sifting.
Sifting based on a set of assumptions.
Let him describe what. Okay, so what? Hold on. Before we go on, just for sake of the conversation, when you say bigotry, Portland, right? In this context, what do you mean?
Well, I actually use the term prejudice, but so far as what you want to characterize it as, like bigotry is fine too. It's an irrational aversion to or like set of assumptions about a group of people, or a group that don't actually have any substantial basis in reality that you can point to, like an irrational aversion.
Basis that you can point to. Okay. Bigotry is an irrational aversion to a group of people or a group that don't actually have any substantial basis that you can point to. Yeah, that's your definition?
Sure.
Okay. What about when I'm trying to figure out, I mean, look at me. I'm very attractive. Lots of people want to have sex with me, right? As a result of this, I have the pick of the litter, right? There are millions of people, and I need to sift down from millions of people, at the very least down to hundreds of thousands, before I can start to try to figure out, what's going to work out, right? And so therefore, I need some sort of mechanism to be like, which are the applications that I'm even going to consider, right? Is it reasonable, when thinking about the applications that I will and will not consider, to be like, hey, I need you to have, like, I don't know, gone to college, for example. Lots of people are smart, lots of people are talented, lots of people are educated, and blah, 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 that didn't go to college. Is it reasonable to be like, I need you to go to college? Is it reasonable, for example, on my Tinder, to be like, I need you to be 6 foot plus. I need you to be like, Jewish, or interested in, interested in rock climbing, or whatever it is. All of these sifting. I'm sure there are people out there who I would want to like get to know who are not interested in board games, right? Who I'd be convinced to become interested in board games. But if you're not interested in board games, like, too bad, so sad. We're not going on a date, right? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, all the things that you're saying are reasonable, but they're disanalogous from the
question. Then explain to us what makes it different when it's sifting for bisexuality.
Behavior. what he's describing are behaviors. And what I'm
What is
saying is that
bisexuality but a
there are
behavior?
no
Hold on, I'm sorry.
It's a
Some of what
sexual preference, not a behavior. It is not
I want to be
indicative
clear.
of any set of social behaviors aside from who you're willing to have sex with, which is again like where we keep getting hung up is you can't compare bisexuality to a behavior. Bisexuality is a preference is like a lack of preference between the sexes, but it doesn't carry with it like a set of social behaviors beyond what like who you're willing to have sex with.
What about kinky?
Sorry?
What if I'm super kinky or I'm super vanilla and I'm like, actually, I don't want to have sex with people who are interested, setting aside butt play for a second because that has sort of coded implications. Anyone who wants to involve rope, or like in my sexual thing, I don't want to have sex with people who are involved with rope or latex. Can I do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but that has like implications, right? There are social pressures for and against latex. There are sort of like, right, like you could imagine that this could be sourced in potentially a sort of like, and there are also, I'm sure, like it's an irrational aversion, right? There might be people who are big fans of rope who also look like Megan Fox, and I would love to engage in fellatio with or whatever, right? But like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's reasonable to have these sifting mechanisms.
These sifting mechanisms are used to filter for people that engage in behaviors that you don't find yourself compatible with. The point that I'm making and that I've tried to be really like repetitive of here is that we're talking about like what differences the woman would have in their day-to-day experience of dating or even having sex with a bisexual man versus a heterosexual man. Would there be any differences at all in their day-to-day relationship, their day-to-day interactions, and what would those differences be from the bisexual man versus the heterosexual man?
So, okay, I don't play board games every single day, right? But it's reasonable for me to be like, hey, I only want to date people who are into board games, right? So like I don't go out, even if it's just the matter of the way that they are or are not flirty with the waitress or whatever, or with the waiter, like that is enough, right? That is something that I can have a preference for. Yes?
You could live in a town of 11 people and be related to the other 9 of them, except for this one man. And you are still going to be repulsed by the fact that this man is bisexual, whether he's ever had sex with another man or not, whether there's another man within 100 miles or not, whether there's another eligible sexual partner of any kind within 100 miles or not.
It's silly. If I were, if
implication of the statement that was made.
No, let him finish. Let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead. Portland, finish your statement.
Okay.
Right.
The statement is that there is an underlying element of homophobia to the exclusionary aspect if you take the exclusionary aspect to its natural extremes, which I just tried to point out here, which is that like you could be 2 people on a fucking spaceship together on like with no humans, like human contact possible for the rest of your life, and there's still like the repulsion is still going to be present because you haven't eliminated the fact that the man is bisexual, even if there's no other eligible sexual partners around. So,
okay, if you killed all of the women tomorrow, like worldwide, I am very confident that the rates of gay would increase. Right? This is
rates of gay, ladies and gentlemen. The gay rates. Okay, Kings in chat. The men who follow me, if you would go gay if there were no women around, press 1, okay?
Oh, we know this. We don't even have to kill all the women. We just need to put the men in jail, right? When you put the men in jail, right, they fuck each other, right? Because they have no women available to them. So they have hot, steamy gay sex, right? Because that's the only option to them. Steamy because it's in a shower, right? So, like, that's fine. Right, but it doesn't mean that they are undergirdingly, or I'm sorry, you don't like the term.
You
that
did
doesn't
that
mean that
on purpose.
I did that on purpose. That's true. It doesn't mean that they're like fundamentally homosexuals or even bisexuals. What it means is that they have a vast preference for women, but in the absence of women, they'll still settle for a butthole.
Sure. But those are, I mean, obviously you're going to have like a level of denial that goes into that with a lot of people who are going to say like they're not gay, but they're in prison, yada, yada. That doesn't really like address, that doesn't really address the point though, right? Like,
no, it does. It does though, because the point is that preferences are a matter of rankings of possibilities, of choices, right? If I'm ranking choices, but there's only one possible choice, then yeah, that's the choice I'll go with. But if there's an infinite supply, if like me, you are incredibly attractive and there's lots of options before you, you can make lots of choices. You can be hyper specific. You must play Monopoly, right? You must. It is demanded.
So let's get some stats in this, and I have a couple of super chats to read. But so according to, and I'm looking this up, according to a poll done in 2019, a YouGov poll, okay, only 19% of women, straight women specifically, would date a bi person. Is that because of homophobia? Do you think that 81% of these women who just won't date a bi man are at least have some level of homophobia in them?
I think that there's a teasing apart of the reasoning behind it that would need to happen before I could say for sure. Like I said before, if you're like an insecure person and the competitive aspect is legitimately like a big concern for you, I can understand that and I can appreciate that, and it's not that big a deal. My entire point of contention has been with the people who have an assumption about an underlying set of characteristics and behaviors that they associate.
Is that an unfair association though? Is the thing? Is it an unfair association to assume, right, that if a man is bisexual, he has had in the past had sex with men, or at least been attracted and wanted to have sex with men, and he might in the future as well?
Why would you be any more likely to like
and to find that repulsive? I just don't understand why it's repulsive.
A man versus a woman. They're both going to represent like differences from the current day-to-day sexual experience that you have. They're both going to be like breaks from the monotony of marriage and stuff. So like I understand that, but that's still like just getting back to the risk of eligibility, which is the thing that I said I could understand.
But no, I'm specifically talking about someone who, like the situation you mentioned. They go to a bar, they hit it off, they're feeling good, they're going home, they're about to get it on, shamalanga ding dong type of style, right? The man bumps into an old friend. The old friend's like, "Oh, we used to date," and the woman's like, "I find that repulsive." The repulsion is that they have engaged in behaviors that they find repulsive, but I don't know if that's homophobic, right?
Well,
because I'll give you an example. A woman who let's talk about. I'm gonna name drop here. Ayala. You guys know who Ayala is? I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Ayala, pretty famous person. You know who she is, right?
I've seen some of her tweets, I think.
Yeah. She had a birthday gangbang, for example. And she made a chart about how many came in her, where they came, and a whole thing.
Okay, I
find that repulsive.
From
I would not date her if I found that out, because that's repulsive to me. It is a type of behavior they have engaged in that I find repulsive sexually.
That's a little different though, Wick, because
that doesn't mean I will treat her any poorly, right? Treat her any worse. That's not any kind of phobia. It's not polyphobia. It's just I don't want to date a woman who's had a birthday gangbang. I just don't.
So a little bit different though, because like I actually do think that what she did there was bad, whereas I don't think that being bisexual is bad.
Okay, so there's a difference there.
Yeah.
If there's a difference between saying like I think that a person that has sex with a fucking bunch of different people at the same time is probably not someone I'm going to be like sexually or personally compatible with, because there's like some fundamental differences in the way that we view like intimacy and how it should be handled between people, versus saying like, I don't date people who have had like sex with people that I individually consider undesirable.
Right. So,
like those are pretty big differences.
There's a difference between the way that I don't want to date a man is different than the way that I don't want to date a murderer, right? I don't want to date a murderer because I actually am bigoted against murderers, right? I am anti-murderer. I'm not anti-man because I don't want to have sex with men, right? But the case of the Ayla example that you brought up, Wick, I think is a case where, and this is a good example because there are some number of people who are probably disgusted by that because they are morally against it, and there's also some number of people who are against it because they find it sexually gross. And so in that case, it's a good comparison actually to this bisexual question, because there are some number of people, I believe, who are in opposition to having sex with bisexual people because they have a moral reticence against bisexuals. And there's also some number of people who are against it because they are sexually uninterested in it, or because it is a sifting mechanism in order to avoid other undesirable behaviors.
Can we live with that?
What are those undesirable behaviors? That's what I feel like we haven't ever gotten to, other than like sex with other men. What are the undesirable behaviors?
So on Twitter, I listed them, so I can drop that in our.
I'm glad that we're getting back to that, because I did find that list
pretty. Yeah, we'll get to the list in a second. Let me read these super chats. Okay, someone paid me $10, so let's go. $5 from the Trib One to say we're all phobic and excess to some degree. What matters is the harm or gatekeeping that potentially happens. Sexual preference is okay, even bigotry. $5 from the Trib One. It's fair to say she was bigoted. Next step is we okay with people saying no to a lifestyle? Is it her duty to not be bigoted and stay with a bi guy?
So I just want to clarify. I think that she is being prejudiced, but I don't think that all prejudice is bigotry, and I don't think that all prejudice is bad. I do think that bigotry is bad. Yeah. But prejudice is not as bad.
I used the word prejudice specifically to describe to describe it in my initial tweet, and that's like a word I'm a lot more comfortable with than bigotry. And I think
prejudice, like I am prejudicially opposed to dating serial killers, right? That's a prejudice of mine, but it's a defensible prejudice. It's not bigoted to not want to date a serial killer. It is defensible, and I am correct not to want to do that, right? It's a prejudice.
Sure.
Okay. So in the same way, it's prejudice. And unlike a serial killer, I don't think that it's morally wrong to be stupid and like to play Chutes and Ladders because you're a dumb fuck, rather than be a genius like me who plays Monopoly, right? But I'm going to be prejudicially in opposition to the players of the Chutes and Ladders because those people are stupid, and I don't want to hang out with stupid people, even though it's not morally wrong to be stupid.
But we're using behaviors to like compare against like a sexual preference. A person can be bisexual and literally never have had sex with like a same-sex partner. Could be bisexual and have never even had like a romantic interaction.
Yes, it's about their psyche.
In the tweet, she specifically said like a man who likes men, not a man who has had sex with men in the past.
Okay.
Like, finding men attractive is enough, in at least my reading of that, to exclude them from the dating pool. And
let's play with the psyche a little bit. So in terms of the psychology, like you're claiming that there's a difference because it's sort of innate to being bisexual, whereas it's not innate to whether or not you play board games. Fine, maybe that's true. There's also part of that's not quite true. It is definitely the case that people who play Botsy a lot, Blood on the Clock Tower, for example, that is an autistic bunch, right? Not universally, but generally speaking, people who play Blood on the Clock Tower are disproportionately autistic. I really enjoy playing Blood on the Clock Tower a lot because I probably am slightly autistic, right? And so, like, that is a cohort that, by saying I want to be with someone who is interested in being in a Botsy group, what I'm actually saying is that I want them to be at least a little bit on the spectrum in that context. Alternatively, there are other games that are very, like, there are games that are very rules-based. There are games that are very sort of loose storytelling, D&D kinds of games. All of this is a matter of their psychology. By making a claim about how I want you to play D&D or how I want you to play whatever it is, I'm saying something about your psychology. As I am also if I'm saying that I want you to be interested in baseball rather than something like hockey,
Let's try
right?
something different. Is it ableist if you won't date a girl who with Down syndrome? Is that ableist? She down? You're down, right?
Is it ableist?
Yeah, is it
to
ableist?
wanna-
Do you like you'd find her attractive otherwise? You'd be attracted otherwise?
Wait. Okay, so you meet this hypothetical girl with Down syndrome, you find her attractive, you find yourselves to be compatible, and then she tells you she has Down
No,
syndrome.
you figure
and
it
that,
out, right? You'll figure it
Wh-
out. But why is that? Once you figure that out,
why would you, if you're otherwise like attracted to this person and having a good like personal interaction with them and you feel like there's romantic chemistry with them, but you also figure out they have Down syndrome in that interaction and decide, like,
or they're just very mentally dumb.
Down syndrome carries with it both a set of like physical characteristics and a set of underlying like mental characteristics that are generally track on to that entire population. There's nothing like that you can say for bisexual people. They do not have either a set of discrete social characteristics or a set of visible physical characteristics that map onto the bisexual population. They don't.
We're so close. You're so close.
No, you are so far away.
Well, no, I'm curious. I want to give Quibbles a chance to explain while you're so close. Go ahead, Quibbles.
This is crucial. I'm so grateful that you are close. You just said that there are all of these behaviors that generally map on. Not universally map on, but generally map on. Okay? Now, in the case of a person who is bisexual, just as in the case of the Christian, just as the case of the person who plays Botsy or plays Monopoly or is a dumb fuck who does Chutes and Ladders, right? There are broader things that generally map on. So on a wait. On a first date, if I find out that someone's favorite board game is Chutes and Ladders, we're done. We're done. Because life is too short for Chutes and Ladders people. Okay? It's simply too short. Okay? And that doesn't mean that they're not worthy of love. It doesn't mean that they're not worthy of, like, existing in society. They're not doing anything morally wrong by being stupid, but I can't hang out with them. I can't interact with them. And if they're the kind of person who plays Dungeons and Dragons because they like the math involved instead of the storytelling, I can't deal with them either. They're not acceptable. They can't be part of my life. Doesn't mean they're doing something wrong. They just can't be part of my life. Because I'm a catch, right?
Okay, this has got to stop. You're doing it again. Chutes and Ladders player plays Chutes and Ladders. A bisexual person in a committed monogamous relationship doesn't go out and fuck other people. That is not a behavior that is generally associated with infidelity. Is not a behavior that is generally associated with bisexual people more so than it is heterosexual people. It is simply a function of the prejudice at play that you associate the mere attraction to men with a bunch of other discrete underlying social characteristics that you have yet to describe or explain.
I asked them their favorite architect, and their response is Bjarke Ingels. I don't respect them. Okay?
The most
this
European
is
thing I've ever heard. I don't respect
Bjarke Ingels, bad architect. Okay? I don't respect them. Okay? This is a problem. Right? Now, to be clear, that part is a little bit prejudicial. It is not bigoted because I'm correct. I'm correct there. It is only prejudicial and not bigoted to be against them because they like Bjarke Ingels. But the broader point is that, like, that is only to do with the architecture that they like. Okay, unless and until we buy a house together and they want to make it look like a Lego factory, okay, it doesn't matter that they have bad architectural hot takes, right? That's fine. However, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily mapped onto other things in their life, right? It could just be that conceptually, but likely it has other things to do with their broader understanding of arts, and it's probably true that their art style is very different than mine. Does that make sense?
No, not in the context of this conversation. It does not make sense because those are not analogous arguments.
You're killing me. You're killing me. Okay.
Okay. $10. Oh, well, $5, I should say, from Metalworks 41190. It sounds like to me that straight women feel insecure and just assume all bisexual men will cheat on them, which has more about them. And then $5 from Zephyr Hash. Bro has clearly never landed on the shoot 99 that puts you down all the way to 5. Most excitement one human can experience in their lives. Thank you for the $5. Okay, carry on.
Zephyr's an idiot. I don't like Zephyr at all. Okay, I'm going to list my differences between that I think are generally the case of heterosexual and bisexual men.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before I do, I just want to preempt what your response is going to be. Here's what his response is going to be. His response is going to be, oh quibbles, oh quibbles. Everything you're saying is generally true, but not universally true. So you can't make any prescriptions based on what is generally true.
Let's get to the list. Let's get to the list. Yeah.
There is no general difference in the way that bisexual.
Hold on. In order for everyone to have context, they need to hear the list. Quibbles, give us a list.
This list is insane.
Generally speaking, bisexual men speak to men differently than do heterosexual men, because there's an undergirding degree of sexuality to the conversation. I'm sorry, I said undergirding again. That one was genuinely an accident. I'm realizing I'm saying it a lot, and I apologize. Okay, that is generally the case. It's not universally the case, but it is generally the case that men speak to men differently than men speak to them if they are heterosexual. Okay? They have different expectations about homework gender dynamics.
Elaborate on that one?
Yes.
Please.
Generally speaking, I think that heterosexual men are much more likely to have conservative beliefs about the way that the chores at home should be broken down. They're more likely, if you are a heterosexual man, to be the kind of guy who goes onto the roof. More likely, if you're a heterosexual man, to be the kind of guy who mows the lawn. More likely to be the kind of guy who knows how to use a sawzall. Less likely to be the kind of guy who is making dinner every night. Those are general homework dynamics that are the case, not universally, but there is a distinction, broadly speaking. If you take 100 bisexual men at random and you take 100 heterosexual ones on the other side, right? The heterosexual ones over here are going on average to have different relationships to homework dynamics, generally speaking. They're going to have different dress and grooming patterns, generally speaking. They're going to have different speech and conflict resolution, generally speaking. The ways that they work out are going to be different, generally speaking. Again, not universally. You notice laughing because he's like, oh my God!
Keep going. There's more to the list. Keep going. There's more to the list. Please, let's finish the list. Let's finish the list before we get into it.
I was a personal trainer for many years. I've never identified like the differences between bisexual and heterosexual male workout routine.
You are a fool. We'll get into it. Foreplay. Foreplay looks different if I am or am not interested in your butthole. They are different types of foreplay. Okay? Co-ed friendship dynamics are different. Okay? I know a lot of people who have majority male friends and a lot of people who have not majority, who are pretty like split down the middle, and a lot of people who are majority female friends, right? When you're talking about the friendships, some friendships are friendships that are still coinciding with sexual desire. Even if you don't desire that particular friend, they are of the cohort that you desire. And other friendships are not within that category. And if they're not in that category, that's a different type of relationship. It's a different type of friendship. And so therefore, having or not having those different kinds of friendships does change the manner in which,
Okay.
I understand those friendships.
We gotta let Portland respond uninterrupted. Yes. Portland, you've been given the list.
Cool. Okay.
What do you think?
Let's go back to the list real quick.
So I'll read them off real quick, lightning fast. Speaks to men differently, has different expectations about homework, gender dynamics. For my audience, shush.
Okay.
Different dress and grooming patterns, speech conflict resolution, the ways they work out, butthole foreplay, and co-ed friendship dynamics. Okay.
Okay, cool. So I don't think that there are any large scale or like general differences that you can point to in between these two groups that would help you like substantiate any of these claims that they speak to men differently. I think that one is like a little bit too subjective for me to really like engage with, but I mean, if you say so, I personally have never like identified that like, oh, the person that's speaking to me right now is probably bisexual. I guess you have difference in our lived experiences, different expectations in home work gender dynamics. I mean, like there might be some corollary there because of the willingness of people in different social groups to identify as bisexual versus like closeted semi-bisexual men who may be in traditional like heteronormative relationships and families and frameworks, whatever, if you say so. I mean, differences in dress and grooming patterns, wouldn't that mean that there would be some way to like outwardly identify bisexual men versus heterosexual men in general, by and large? Like I have never found this to be the case in my day-to-day life. If there's some kind of like data that you can provide that would substantiate this difference, it feels like it's something that we should be able to observe though, and I definitely don't. Speech conflict resolution. I mean, this again seems like a preconceived notion that we have some fundamental differences in the way that we like engage with our partners and engage with problem solving and stuff that I don't think is borne out in any data or anything that you can like point to other than your opinion. I don't think that this opinion is based on anything more than like a prejudice that you might have and not realize it. The ways that they work out. This one is particularly funny to me because I was, like I said, I was a personal trainer for quite a few years, and there's no way for me to like observe from the outside that like, oh, this person is bisexual based on the way that they work out. I have never like perceived any coded sexual cues in the way that people's workouts function, heterosexuals versus bisexuals. I would be really like grateful if you
maybe
could
your bidar just doesn't work, man. Like, maybe, did you ever think of that?
Maybe I'm
you
just
suck at
terrible at this.
Figuring out who's bi and not.
I personally like. I think everybody is, you know, on a spectrum somewhere. I don't believe any man that says that they don't find Ryan Reynolds the least bit attractive.
What other men do you find attractive?
But nevertheless.
Yeah. Okay.
Foreplay, again, like you're giving, like you're indicating that there's like this set of behaviors that are going to be present in a heterosexual relationship between a man and a woman that aren't going to be present in like with a bisexual partner or vice versa. I think that like men engage with women a certain way regardless of whether or not they also engage with men. Like
hold on, just real quick, because you said something earlier and it took my brain a minute to catch up to it, but fair enough. You said that you find Ryan Reynolds attractive. Do you understand there's a difference between finding someone attractive and wanting to fuck them, right? So you could appreciate the aesthetics of a man and not be bi, but you are bi if you want to fuck them or want them to fuck you.
Well, yeah, you're a lot further along on the spectrum of, you know,
I just wouldn't say you're on the spectrum at all unless you cross that point. I think it's pretty binary. If you want a man to fuck you or want to fuck a man, you have crossed that line.
Well, what about
if you don't?
What about
then you have
what
not.
Quibbles alluded to earlier? The fact that like, you know, outwardly and heteronormative like straight dudes turn
I'm not
gay
talking about his weird list.
all the time,
I don't know
like
about his
out
weird
of
list.
necessity, and there is at least like some portion of the spectrum that they belong like by virtue of that, right? Even if they are completely heterosexual outside of the context of prison, if they have sex with men inside prison, then they're like somewhere on that spectrum, right?
Yes. This is a spectrum. Gender is a spectrum. Sexuality is a spectrum. Sure, fine. But people are on different places on that spectrum, and so when people self-categorize in association with certain things, like it is reasonable to say, hey, I'm interested in men, even though manhood is a sort of imperfect thing to be looking at as a generalized group, because there are people who are very feminine within that group and there are people who are very masculine within the woman group, right? But you can still say you're gay, and it's not bad. It's not more to say that you're gay. You can be gay. It's okay, right?
When you get really close to the camera, it looks like you're giving like a demand speech every time. Like, if you ever want to see them again, you will have the money by dawn under the big tree in Central Park.
Yeah.
It's giving Luigi vibes. I'm really like
it. I'm furious. How dare you say that? Okay, so you just said a bunch of things were corollaries. Yes?
I said a few of the things that you mentioned have like there's some correlate. Yeah, there a couple of them.
Back to my board games. There is a correlation that if your favorite board game is Chutes and Ladders, that you are a dumb fuck. That's a correlation. It's not causative, right? You're not a dumb fuck because you like Chutes and Ladders. You like Chutes and Ladders because you are a dumb fuck, right? The dumb fuckery is upstream, not downstream of the Chutes and Ladders. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
$5 from another new account. Am I bigoted against Canadians if I don't want to sleep with Ryan Reynolds?
No, but bigotry against that would be a prejudice, because it's defensible to be against Canadians. That's a prejudice, not bigotry.
I just don't believe you. That's fine. You can be in the closet. I don't believe you're bigoted. I believe you're lying.
Desire for buttholes is upstream of bisexualism. Does that make sense?
Do you think that gay men invented butt play? Like that men haven't been...
Not say. Desire for buttholes, you start with a desire for buttholes. You say, wow, what a good butthole. And then gay. Does that make sense? You start with a butthole, it becomes the gay.
No, it doesn't, because it's just an attraction to holes as a concept, and that's just an any port in a storm situation when you happen to be romantically coupled with a man. When you're romantically coupled with a woman, you have options, but you know, plenty of heterosexual men explore both options.
So there's no correlation. You cannot say any causative link whatsoever. You can say a correlation. You can't say any causative link to the love of the butthole and the love of the gay. These are not causative in any sense.
And I just want to say real quick, there's a lot of people making a lot of comments in chat. There's 80 some people watching the YouTube stream, and I assume there's some on Twitch too. That's better than the Dungeons and Dragons streams. You people are voting with your eyes and your dollars right now. Just remember that this is how we get things.
We're going to tie them together. This year is the year where we're tying these things together. They're going to be correlated. Butthole, foreplay, Dungeons and Dragons. What's the correlation? We're gonna figure this out. Let me read a couple super chats, right? Because these are worth reading. And then we'll try to get back on track. I'm glad I'm glad someone's enjoying the stream. Okay, $5.
You seem like you're having a great time. I haven't seen you.
I don't know what's going on. We're you know what? This is look. Usually we have some really serious topics that matter. I'm glad we can go. $5 from the Trib one to say quibbles. You giving the list is just you justifying why it's okay to be bigoted. That doesn't mean it isn't bigoted. I agree. Sexual preference allows for it. $5 from the Trib one.
Wait. Answer it. They're wrong. Prejudicial is not bigotry.
Okay.
Prejudicial with cause is not bigotry. I don't know why you did that, Wick, but I'll do it too. Yeah.
Okay, we know what he means. You know what he means. We all know what he means. Let's go with it. Okay.
Prejudicial against serial killers. That's acceptable.
Serial killing is a thing you do.
So is being bisexual.
No, it's not.
Yes,
it's a
it
thing
is.
that you're open. No, it's a thing that you're like. It's a spectrum of possibilities that you're open to. It's not a thing that you do. Being bisexual doesn't mean that you're going to have like infidelity problems. It doesn't mean that you're going to want
It
to fuck
means
other
that
people.
you're
It
going to
doesn't
be
mean that you're
attracted
gonna
to
wanna
men.
It means that you're.
It means you're going to be attracted to men. Yes.
Yes, but that's not a behavior. That's just that's a predilection that sets the table for possible behaviors. Okay, there's a difference. A thing that you do versus things that you're a spectrum of things you're willing to do. It's different things. Okay, these are different categories.
Stream of behavior. The bisexualism is upstream. Yes. Does this make sense to you? Does this make sense? It's upstream of behaviors. You're not guaranteed to do every single one of those behaviors that are downstream of the bisexualism, but the bisexualism is still upstream of those behaviors. Yes.
They are two links in a chain. Sure.
Okay. If I don't want you to engage in those behaviors, like being a dumb fuck, don't do shoots and ladders. Don't be a shoots and ladders person. I will avoid the shoots and ladders because it is representative of this broader chain.
Hold on. I've heard the shoots and ladders thing like 30 times now. Let's reframe this. Do you think that the same can be said about women? Do you think that like a man is going to have a different experience dating a bisexual woman versus a heterosexual woman, and is it okay to like exclude along those lines? What are the differences going to be? Because full disclosure, I'm married to a bisexual woman. I've had relationships with straight women who have literally no interest in other women, and I've been along that spectrum. My wife is like solidly bisexual, but I cannot tell you any social differences that I think you could point to that would inform that.
I imagine, and I don't know for sure, but
I can probably guess what you imagine.
On average, I would presume that your wife is more non-actioned, flirtatious, right? Without trying to manifest sex, but is on average more flirtatious with her female friends than are other women that you have dated in the past.
No. I mean, she has a whole girl group of friends that she hangs out with all the time. There's no like sexual undertones. There's no like
we're finding out that you can't identify sexual undertones either when it's coming towards you or when it's with others. That's what we're figuring out today. That's what we're learning.
Just an assumption that you're making that because my wife is bisexual, there must be like sexual
there is inherently men and women, right, who are straight. There's an inherent like undercurrent. I won't say undergirding, but there is an undercurrent of sexuality that does not exist between straight men and straight men.
Which, to be clear, does not mean that every single conversation I've ever had with a woman, I'm trying to get in her pants. Right?
No, this is like a voluntary energy that you, when you're single, obviously don't have to go to any lengths to like rein in or, account for. When you are in a committed monogamous relationship, whether it be like between two men, two women, a man and a woman, etc., there is a conscious like reining in and regulating of those behaviors that happens that precludes the vast majority of those like sexual undertones from being like noticeable or material in any way. It's just, you cannot sit here and act like the way that people engage when they're not romantically coupled and monogamous versus when they are, like these are the exact same, or that these don't have some conscious level of like modification happening when you know that like you're monogamous with another person. It's just silly to suggest otherwise.
That you have ever experienced a gendered conversation in which neither party was trying to have sex with the other?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Do you think that gay men might interact with straight women differently in certain circumstances than do heterosexual men?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that bi men might sometimes interact with women differently than straight men.
Do you think might sometimes is doing a little bit too much heavy
Why
lifting
would
here for when you're trying to establish a
that was
general
just-
like
yeah.
set of characteristics that applies to one group and not the other?
You
I
were
never
perfect.
said that people might not act differently sometimes.
You were
It's
so
about
you
whether or not there's like a broad
so
and
close.
general set of characteristics that you can
Portland,
apply to one group and not the other.
You were just a sentence prior to you going on your little floopity boopity. You were perfectly happy to be like, yes, gay men interact with women, heterosexual women, differently. Not all the time, but sometimes, often.
Yeah, because gay men never have sex with heterosexual women. Heterosexual men.
Well,
with
hold on.
heterosexual-
I know a lot of gay men who have kids, right?
Wait,
Okay, beards aside.
you're so close.
Masking and beards aside. You know
Okay,
what I mean.
You're so close. You're so close.
Stop saying I'm so close. You couldn't be.
No, but you are. You are.
farther
You're
than when we
edging.
started this
You're on the.
conversation.
You're edging each other. Okay, he's edging you right now. Go ahead on stream live. Go ahead. I do
When
have more
you-
super chats, but
When
you're this
are
close,
talking
brother.
about gay men interacting with other gay men, do they interact differently than heterosexual men talking to other heterosexual men? You can
Yeah.
do it.
In most cases, probably. Exclusive sexual attraction, like exclusive pools of sexual eligibility are what I've been fucking pointing to this entire time. You're not getting any points, Quibbles. You've
This is
just
good.
discovered
Good.
like the first
Good.
thing I said in real time. It's been an hour and 20 minutes and we're still on step fucking 1. That like, yes, people have different
And you guys
sets of
thought we couldn't
behaviors
do 2
around,
hours.
like,
Anyway,
people
go
that they
ahead.
consider sexual partners of sexual, like sexually eligible nature. And I said very, very plainly at the very beginning, like if your concern is that you don't want to compete with that large a sexual marketplace, that's
No.
totally valid. Ugh.
No, it's not about competition. It's a matter of when I go out to dinner with my girlfriend, right? Because you asked, or I'm a woman now. When I go out to dinner with my heterosexual boyfriend, right?
Hey, I have gay friends, Nair Socks. Excuse me. Sorry, go ahead.
Listen to Quibbles. Don't read chat. Listen to your interlocutor. Don't read chat. I will read chat. I will take care of that.
My
Focus
eyes
on
wandered for a
Quibbles.
second.
Focus.
When I Quibbleina go out to dinner with my heterosexual boyfriend, okay, the way that he around the table interacts with the other men is different than were he to be interacting with gay men as a man who is bisexual than if he is a heterosexual who is interacting with other heterosexual men.
Not necessarily, no. Not if you're in a monogamous relationship already. There is no like there is no universe where you can tell me that like you just don't understand that people have a level of agency and control over their own behaviors, and when you're in a monogamous relationship, you do you put forth varying degrees of effort to be as sterile and as like aromantic.
Only
as possible.
13% of the population is bi, but they cheat on. They're responsible for 50% of the cheating that exists within relationship. Okay, I'm just FYI, but carry on.
We don't need that, Wick. Yeah. All right. I feel like I have absolutely destroyed you. You have been annihilated.
I got more super chats. Okay, if you guys, if you're so confident, let me read some super chats, and we'll get to it. Okay, we'll get through it. Okay, $5 from Trib1. The argument is about if it's justified. I say it's personal. Incels don't need to be saved. Bis, straights, and gays don't either. Just be fair is all. $5 from the new account. Well, I already read that. Sorry. $5 from $5 from Middleman. Okay, I feel like I have to chime in here. How the fuck can you tell if someone is bi? Unless they tell you. How do you explain closeted people going unnoticed? Look, I'll tell you this. There are some guys that I know before they say a word, before they say one thing to me, that guy likes men.
Okay,
You just
so there's maybe with
They kind
a
of prance around when they talk.
answer.
Flick of the wrist.
Hold
when
on,
they
you don't
have
think
the
you can tell in
to
some
make
instances
is-
just immediately like,
Portland,
oh, that person loves men. That person has had sex with men, or he wants to.
Enjoys the penis. He enjoys the penis, this man. Okay, so let me answer.
You can though. You're laughing, but this is true. We can.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Fuck. Read the thing again. Wick, you
Okay,
stalled for so long. I couldn't even
Sorry.
remember.
Okay, because you just can. Look, if no one here, if you think that you can't sometimes just tell, you're lying to yourself. You can tell if someone is gay or not. Sometimes,
No shit.
just
This
you
nobody
just
said
know.
you couldn't.
This guy does in the super chat. Let me read the super chat. The super chat said $5 from Mr. Middleman says this. Okay, I feel like I have to chime in here. How can you tell if someone is bi unless they tell you? How do you explain closeted people going unnoticed? And I'm saying that you can tell through intuition.
Wick, you are to be silent. I will be now answering. Okay. If someone is in the closet and they are performing their sexuality is a performance, not just the sexuality that exists in their mind, but the sexuality that exists as they operate in society, right? In terms of their operating sexuality as a closeted bisexual, interacting with the world as a straight, that is an example of a person who would not be sifted out of her mating group by virtue of her expressed desire to date only heterosexual men. This is the same as the group of people that we were talking about earlier, the people who are gay for the stay, who are only gay while behind bars in the jail. Bars and sticks, sticks and bars, okay? But outside of the bars, no sticks. No sticks outside of the bars. Yeah.
Okay. So it feels like you guys are both stuck on this point that, like, yeah, there are some traits that you would generally associate with homosexual men, and there might be some overlap between those traits and bisexual men too. Nobody's saying that they're not. What I'm saying is that there's not like a general set of characteristics that you can associate with bisexual men outside of the characteristics that you associate with homosexual men and just sort of like impose onto the bisexual group by virtue of the fact that they both have sex with men. There's no like broad set of social and behavioral characteristics outside of the bedroom, outside of like what you do with your romantic partner that you can point to and say like, oh, that indicates a bisexual man.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Portland. I line up 100 dudes in front of you. Out of those 100 dudes, 50 are either gay or bisexual. I say I'm going to give you $5 for every correct answer you give. I bet you, given enough time, that you will get a lot of money. You will be able to correctly choose through interactions without being able to ask directly, right? But through interactions, you'll be able to identify most of those men.
It entirely depends on where you take those men from. Like, if you take them from, fucking LA, you're going to have a lot harder time telling them apart than if you take them from, like, it really depends on where you pull these people from. If you're pulling them all from the same, like, local population, you're going to have a pretty hard time. If you're pulling them from different local populations, like, you're going to filter by, like, geography more than you're going to filter by anything outwardly visible from their aesthetic presentation. So, like, while you might assume that you're going to start with, like, the most flamboyant,
it would be harder if they were from different localities. It would be easier if they were from the same locality. So if I got them all from LA, it would be easier than if I got some from LA, some from Georgia, some from Florida, some from New York, some from Pennsylvania, etc. All of them from the same locality makes the job easier, actually.
Well, it actually depends. Because if you're doing a random sampling, like a nationwide random sampling of all of the gays, and an equivalent randomized sampling of all of the straights, you're going to have a skew in terms of the gays, wherein you're going to have more gays come from cities because there are more gays in cities as a proportion of the gay population than there are straights in cities as a proportion of the straight population. And so you'd expect that something like Los Angeles, if you see someone who's from Los Angeles, they're probably a homosexual, because most of the gays live in places like Miami and places like LA, disproportionately. Not most, but a larger population. Yeah. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the broader conversation. That's just how statistics stat, you know.
I'm just on the point that, like, this idea that you can't tell, like, look, not always, it's not 100%, but again, we can understand that through, again, just interaction in general, you get impressions. Now, it's polite. It's polite usually not to tell people, because maybe you're wrong. There's always a percentage chance you're wrong, and it's just impolite, because why does it matter normally, right?
Okay, wait, hold on 1 second. So I understand what you're saying, and I think that I did my best to kind of control for all of these outward presenting variables when I asked the question earlier about two people meeting at a bar, and then they're already like established a surface level attraction. They've already established good romantic chemistry. They're literally on the way out of the bar together to go home together. And then just like the revelation that the man is bisexual is the only thing that changes, and it fundamentally changes the equation to the point that the mutual attraction is no longer there.
But there's so many things that in that situation I could find out that I could be revealed about my potential partner, that of their past behavior, of their predilections, of their interests, of what they're attracted to, etc. That would turn me off, that I don't think are, let me put this, an immoral prejudice. Right.
Yeah, and that's fine, but we're not talking about all the other possible things that you could find out. We're specifically talking about the lone revelation that there has been a romantic relationship with a man in the past.
Yeah, I don't think that's an immoral prejudice.
It doesn't inform, it doesn't reveal anything else about this individual. So we are trying to control for just this single factor in a real world hypothetical. So that's like the only point of me trying to frame this so narrowly. If that alone is the exclusionary factor to you, despite the fact that you've already established some like compatibility in the surface level, that is a prejudice that I think is largely you could describe as homophobic, because there's no other characteristic that's being revealed there aside from attraction to men. And you need to bake in a bunch of other assumptions about what that means to justify that exclusion. By doing so, you're revealing that there is like an anti-gay, or at least like a prejudice there that is ascribing characteristics to gay people that aren't necessarily true, or bisexual people that aren't necessarily true.
$2 from Psychor. Has anyone made the bigotry joke yet? Oh, well, you're
classic.
The first. Then this question, and we'll probably use this to kind of end the discussion.
Yeah.
This is to you, Quibbles. $5 from Rabid Wombat. Everything you said can apply to trans men and women. If you find out on date 5 someone is trans, is it bigoted to drop them because of it?
That Quibbles?
Yeah, that's the Quibbles, but I'm curious everyone's answer here, right?
Repeat the question one more time.
You're on date 5, okay?
Yeah.
You're out with this woman. You're hitting it off. You're sexually attracted to her. You find her attractive. And she doesn't play Chutes and Ladders. You've already established that, right? She hits all the boxes, okay? Then you find out that, she's trans. She's not cis.
Yeah.
And you're like, is it bigoted to stop dating her?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Same answer, Mr. Portland?
Well, there's a question of like, is it pre or post-op? Do you have past experience with trans people that like leads you to believe that you're not sexually compatible because you've tried it before? Like, there could be experiences that inform your opinion like directly as a one-to-one comparison that I think would kind of bail you out of the label. But if you're just otherwise attracted to someone, you've been on enough dates with them that you feel like you're really compatible, and then that is the deal breaker, yeah, there's probably some level of transphobia there. And again, like discrimination and like these phobias, they're not to say that you're a bad person or that you are like fundamentally like beyond some kind of character rehabilitation or that you even need it. It's just that you have a phobia, a prejudice that has taken the form of a phobia, and you should at the very least acknowledge it. You should be cognizant of it rather than treating it like some kind of insult that you're afraid to acknowledge and kind of like grapple with internally.
I want to amend my answer there, actually, because I think you're partly right. There are cases where the reason could be bigoted, and there are cases where it could be prejudicial but not bigotry. Portland, do we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we agree on that there are cases where it could be bigoted and there are cases where it could just be prejudicial but defensively prejudicial, why don't we agree on that?
Follow up. Given these answers,
Please.
Do trans people have a duty to disclose?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Not to like everyone in the world, but if you're going to have sex with them, yeah, absolutely. For sure.
You probably should. I mean, you know, if you don't, you're taking the risk on yourself, and I wouldn't encourage anyone to
DoorDash
take
driver.
that risk
A
into the
DoorDash
bedroom.
driver delivers a pizza or whatever. The woman, right, is trans, gives them a blowjob, right? It's a sexual encounter. Doesn't tell the guy that she's trans. Did that woman do anything wrong?
That's good. I'm against that for other reasons that are apart from just her being trans.
Okay, yeah. But like setting those aside, did that person do anything wrong in not disclosing that she was trans?
Yeah,
the DoorDash
but
driver?
she's done like other things that are also wrong, because I don't think that you should have sex that casually.
Okay, sure, but we're setting that aside. So just the fact that she didn't disclose is wrong in that situation. There's no relationship after. It was just a sexual encounter. She sucked the guy's dick. Okay.
Yes.
She didn't close.
Correct.
Okay. She did something wrong. Do you have the same answer?
Not exactly. I mean, kind of, but you have to understand that there's like an element of personal risk at play here that I think informs whether or not you should, regardless of the morality. I think that you should always disclose as a trans person because of the heightened risk of violent responses from potential partners that feel like misled. So for your own safety, you should always disclose no matter the nature of the encounter. But that's
more of a pragmatic thing. I'm talking about a moral
thing. I know, I know. And I said that like there's the moral side of it and there's the pragmatic side of it. Morally speaking, the situation that you've described, I don't really care. Like, I don't think that I don't think a trans person or a cis person giving you a blowjob, like if you accept the blowjob from someone, you're accepting like a mouth. And if you have some kind of like baked in assumptions about the other things behind that mouth, I don't really care. Like there's a level of kind of like disclosure that happens on the surface based on the fact that you're only engaging on that like surface level. You should do what you think is right, and I don't really care like in that situation what someone decides to do on a moral level.
The DoorDash driver the next day reads a post on Twitter about this girl who is trans, bragging about it, saying, "I sucked the DoorDash driver's dick and he never knew I was trans." That's
gross
out.
because you're intentionally hiding something and then disclosing your sexual behaviors.
He didn't ask, right?
Public. Like no, there's a bunch of other things that just happened there that make that disclosure wrong. None of them have anything to do with the fact that it was a trans person. It is the deceit, the disclosure without consent, and the level of like deceit that you're implying in that the person is deliberately like concealing that they are trans somehow, and that isn't something that I don't
think that if you're just like gyrating on someone's buttocks while you're enjoying the clubbing environment, that they have an obligation to be like, wait, but before you start gyrating on my buttocks, you must know that I have had a BBL. Is that what they're called? BBLs? The like Brazilian, the butt lift. Yeah. I had a BBL. I don't think they're obligated to tell you. However, if the next day they're like bragging on Twitter about LOL, this freaking idiot, didn't know that I had a BBL. He thought it was real. What a fucking loser. What a fucking idiot. And he definitely wouldn't have gyrated on my buttock if he knew it was a fake.
Hold on. Sad Kit Kat if you have opinions on whether or not it's homophobia to not date bi men, by all means, jump backstage. I'll pull you in.
I'd love to yell at a woman about that. I'm sorry. Just
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
I actually I agree with Quibbles though. That is the part that's unethical, is like the non-consensual disclosure, the intent to mislead, the like active like thought process that tricks someone into doing this thing.
The fact that you're posting about it the next day on Twitter definitionally means that you meant to, you did not believe that they would have consented had they had all of the information available.
Yeah, and that you're violating their consent in terms of the disclosure as well. Like, there's not,
well,
the unethical part of that isn't just like that this person was trans.
I don't think it's a violation in quite the same way to be like talking about the sexual encounter after the fact in a way that is sort of socially uncouth, as it is to actually violate their consent in the moment. I think those are slightly different. They're both bad, but I don't think they're bad in the same way, if that makes sense.
Okay, our new goal is to get Sad Kit Kat to come on the panel, gang. Look, this is the only time you'll ever hear me say this. Clip it, you can save it. I think we need a woman's opinion, okay? Never would have said that.
Get a homophobic woman up here.
Right? But we do need another opinion on this. And Sad Kit Kat, you'd be great. Come on, talk to us. Slam two
Honestly,
drinks.
like, I
Go
thought
ahead.
this would be
Slam
a third viewer stream.
Slam them and come on. Let's go. Let's play. Okay.
I thought this would fizzle out in 40 minutes. I thought it'd be a 30 viewer stream. I am impressed by the amount of juice we've been able to squeeze from this stone. So,
well, it goes to again something that everyone can relate to: the ideas of prejudice, bigotry, as well as personal preferences and selection in the dating process.
Perfect.
It's a good.
Portland, you are pro prejudice, right?
I'm accepting of prejudice. I don't.
No. Like, I want you to be pro prejudice.
I am
pro prejudice.
I'm perfectly comfortable with the existence of prejudices, and
it's good to discriminate against some people.
Yeah, it is explicitly, we should discriminate against certain people in terms of who we do and do not allow to engage with our penis. Yes?
Or in life.
Or in life. Yes, that's also true. But specifically, the people who we do and do not allow to engage with our penis.
Penises are important, okay?
They are important.
They're valuable. They're a national asset, okay?
Yes,
and we have to keep...
I'm a proponent of phallic-free association. That is correct.
It's not just I'm supportive of, like, you have the right to have phallic association, blah, 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 blah. In terms of the phallic association, some associations of the phallus are inferior to other forms of phallic association.
Some people like feet, dude. Like, I'm sorry, but
no,
like the presence of foot guys
negates
this entire argument that like there are certain things that are like more sexually valuable than others inherently.
No, it's not the same. If I found out that you are having sexual relations with a murderer, I would be like, Portland, don't fuck the murderer.
Like conjugal visits with like
Luigi
a really
Manleone
murderer.
Okay? No, this is perfect.
Like...
We could tie in a lot of topics. Luigi Maglione, whatever, the Italian. Okay? Luigi. Okay, it is immoral to fuck that man.
I'm sorry. Wait,
it's
I don't want to get
immoral to fuck that man.
Listen, Wick, I don't want to get political, but Luigi is hot. Okay, so we need to set him aside.
It's still immoral. It is immoral.
No.
You are sinning. Okay.
Listen, he's hot. I'm saying, just as a generalized thing, okay, Luigi aside, okay, Super Smash Bros. Over here, we're talking over here, right? Over here, just a normal murderer, just like fucking shot his next door neighbor one day, just cuz, okay? Do not have sexual relations with the murderer.
Okay, now it's your turn to explain why. Let me set the stage. There's like a really, really hot murderer that you've been corresponding with via, written letters, obviously, because she's in the hole. She doesn't have internet. And she's getting one conjugal visit a year, and she wants to use it on you. What is morally wrong with banging that murderer?
presupposing moral wrongness, which is not the kind of wrongness that I am suggesting. I'm saying that it is bad for you to have sexual relations with this murderer.
It's bad for society too, but go on. Yeah.
That too. Well, the societal thing is immoral.
So,
No
one should be fucking murderers.
I agree that probably society, but we'll
why not? You guys are begging the question.
I want to first focus on it's bad for Portland to be stopping the murderer. Do not stop the murderer.
I heard the prescription. Now I need the justification, guys. Either one of you. Give me the moral reason not to have sex with the incarcerated murderer.
The justification is because murder is a red flag.
You're not going to have any kind of relationship outside of the conjugal visit. So, like, you're filling the terms of the hypothetical. Wick, do you want to take a crack at this? Because a red flag is a really bad.
I want to hear his elaboration, please.
Okay.
Quibbles.
In the same way that flipow, punched holes in the wall is a red flag, doesn't guarantee that you're going to punch me. No. But okay.
No. A, this is a pragmatic argument, not a moral argument. And B, red flags implies that there's going to be some sort of like availability of you for them to like be abusive or act on those red flags. So you're failing the terms of the hypothetical. Morally, why is it wrong?
Again, you said moral, and Wick also said moral, but I did not say moral. I said it is bad, right? For you it is bad to shoot the murderer. Now we get to the moral also, but first I want to focus on just the murder is a red flag. Yes? Do you grant that murder is a red flag in the same way that punching the drywall is a red flag? Arguably even, murder is more of a red flag.
What are red flags for in the context of a relationship, Quibbles? What are they? What is the function that a red flag serves? Explain.
With violent negative outcomes in the relationship.
Okay, and do you think a person that is incarcerated in under 24-hour surveillance and only has 30 minutes to spend with you in a conjugal trailer once a year has the capacity to engage with you violently? They're going to be executed. They're going to be locked up for the rest of their lives, whatever the case is. Like, they have no capacity to abuse you outside of the 30-minute conjugal visit. So, doesn't
okay.
Wait, no,
this is good. Okay. Imagine. Close your eyes so that you can imagine. Okay. You're walking down the path. Okay. It's a beautiful summer's day. Okay. There are two options of a dog that you can encounter. Okay. One of them is wearing a muzzle.
Wrong panel, Quibbles.
No, let him go. Please, one's wearing a muzzle.
Is wearing a muzzle. Okay. And is growling. And is going. But it's in a muzzle, okay? The other is an adorable Shih Tzu, okay? And the adorable Shih Tzu, my eyes are still closed, as are yours, of course. The adorable Shih Tzu does not wear a muzzle. Okay, open your eyes. The Shih Tzu is not wearing a muzzle. The scary one is wearing a muzzle. The Shih Tzu could bite you. The one wearing a muzzle cannot bite you. However, even if they're wearing a muzzle, right, the red flags associated with the puppy are different.
Quibbles, I'm not worried about a fucking woman hurting me, okay? We're talking about a woman here. We're not talking about a man. Please,
but it's psychologically abuse you. Are you under the impression that women can't abuse you?
What
are you talking about?
She's in prison. I'm not dating her. I'm just stopping in for 30 minutes to have sex with her once a year. God damn it.
Just because you are physically stronger than someone doesn't mean that they are not capable of psychologically abusing you.
What kind of psychological abuse is she going to enact during that 30-minute conjugal visit?
We're going to find out, ladies and gentlemen. Julie's getting her second drink ready, and she'll be jumping backstage. We'll
bring on the woman.
All the time.
Here we are. Okay, just real quick. Julie, what's up?
Oh, good God.
What's up?
Hold on. Give me a minute. One
Yeah,
sec.
take your time. Take your time.
Yeah,
we're gonna
let's
give.
see them
Hold on.
dance.
No. Hold on.
Sorry,
That.
I'm just kidding.
We're
I'm
gonna give
doing
Julie. She's here to educate us. Right? We didn't have a female voice in this, and Julie has kindly
Oh, God.
volunteered
Been able.
to give us her
No.
Thank
opinion
you.
on the thing, and then we can
I'm
engage with
realizing
that.
this
But
was
we
a
will give
mistake.
Julie pride of place here, because you guys have had 2 hours to talk, and Julie just got here, so
I think this was a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have.
it's never a mistake. Well, welcome to the stream. Okay, is it homophobic if you won't date it? First of all, would you date a bi guy?
No.
Why not?
I don't really like feminine men, and I don't. I feel like you'll probably want to touch butt if you're bi, and I don't want to touch man butt.
Is that homophobic, do you think?
Yeah, kinda. I mean, it assumes a bunch.
I'm just not into man butt. I don't understand.
Not all bisexual men are into having their butts played with. Some gay men aren't into having their butts played with, right? Some gay men are tops and some are bottoms. Am I using the terms right?
Yeah, but if you're fucking around with dudes and you're a dude, someone's touching someone's butt.
Yeah, but men, like straight men, fuck women's butts, and some gay men only give and don't receive. So like,
I just
there's
don't.
not-
But like, if I axe that out, I never have to deal with the potential of them trying to get their butt touched. If I'm like, nah, it's fine. Then it's fine. Then we'll both be happy.
Sure. So, like you're basically just like
Why is she
assuming
a
that there's-
homophobe? Hold on, no. Explain why Julie is a homophobe.
Well, she associates homosexual behaviors with all bisexual men, so she filters all bisexual men out to like reduce the likelihood of having to engage with anything kind of gay.
That's fine.
Yeah, that seems
I-
like okay, like
What-
yeah, it's little like
Yeah.
what's a little homophobia in your dating, just
It's
like in your dating
homophobic.
patterns.
Touch butt. I don't want to touch butt. What do you
Not-
mean?
It's her butt. You're not entitled to her butt.
Okay,
That's
let me
fine.
ask you this. Like, you're at a bar, meet a guy, you guys get on well, you have good chemistry, you're walking out, you're getting ready to go home together. You find out that he's bisexual. Are you turning around and like breaking it off, not going home with that guy just because you found out he's bisexual, even though you're otherwise like ready to go?
I wouldn't go home with someone I just met from the bar, anyways. So that's
Okay.
already a no.
Sure, but like put yourself in the shoes of someone that would then. Like assume
Well,
that the
hold on. No,
hypothetical
let's
is
change.
not
So we'll
crazy.
just change the thing. So you've gone on, however many date requisite is. They've asked like, hey, we're gonna seal the deal. Okay, you're gonna come over tonight. We're gonna do what we do. Okay. Then you get a call. You find out, it's from his ex-boyfriend. Okay, his ex-boyfriend.
My God, this is juicy tea.
Yeah, his ex-boyfriend wants to wish you guys a happy relationship or something, right? Or you find, or you check and you ask who he's talking to, and he says, "Oh, it's my ex-boyfriend." He's bi.
Did I know he dated guys before?
Nope. This is the first time.
See,
you
but
found out.
then okay, no, because if we're going on lots of dates and stuff, and you never tell me that you have dated a guy before, that would throw me off.
So bisexual people have a duty to disclose, basically.
I think
is what you're
so.
saying. Okay.
I disclose. I'll tell people. Seems fine. Because like
Actively-
I sorry,
Yeah.
someone else go.
Finish your thought.
If
Go ahead.
if you've gone on 6 dates and you haven't told them that you're bi, like you are actively not telling that statement to them, right?
Do you think
I
there's
feel like that's just something that would just come up in conversation anyways. Like you're getting to know someone, you're gonna get to know their sexuality. 6 dates, you probably know their sexuality by then. If not, it's like a red flag. Why are you hiding it?
You don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like there's a level of like compatibility that you've kind of either established or established isn't there after a handful of dates, and if that's like part of your the vetting process, that's fine. That's like why I was trying to establish that it's like the reveal in isolation before, like after you've already decided like, okay, I'm into this person, we're gonna have sex tonight, or at the very least like we're gonna go home together and see what happens, and like the only thing that changes in that equation is that like you find out that this guy has like dated a man in the past, not even like actively dating men in the present, but that just like he has an ex-boyfriend. Is that like enough that this person, even though they're like exclusively dating women now, they need to disclose to you before you guys have any kind of like intimate relationship that he's like had a boyfriend in the past, and like, if so, why?
I don't know if I would necessarily care that he's like had a boyfriend in the past if he's only like exclusively dating women at this point in time, but I think it would lead into a conversation of, are we going to be sexually compatible?
Sure. And I think like as long as you're willing to like entertain sexual compatibility with someone that has had like a relation, even just like a relationship with a man in the past, you're probably not part of the group that I'm referring to when I push back specifically on the term disgust, which like I think kicked off this entire
Well, let's
conversation.
ask. Do you
by
find? Hold on.
framing it.
Hold on. Let
No,
me ask. Let me. Let me ask Julie directly. Julie, do you find the idea of being in a relationship with a bisexual man to be repulsive or disgusting or anything like that?
Repulsive or disgusting? I think it's
For you,
it would
specifically.
be. I don't think it's repulsive or disgusting. I think it's just something new that like, because it would come with its own set of challenges, that it would be something that would turn me off from, like, if I didn't know them very well and they told me, I think I would be like, okay, there's probably someone out there that like I'm more compatible with. If I'm already like in love with them and then I find out, then that's a different story.
It's also like the fact that they're bisexual might not be repulsive, but the fact that they are trying to play with your butt might be repulsive, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
that is. And so like the
None of that
manifest
is what was said to kick this conversation off, right?
is repulsive, right?
No, you guys keep trying to like intellectually justify the word repulsive as though it's like
No,
not as bad as it sounds. It's not indicative of a prejudice that might be a little bit more homophobic than just saying, I don't want somebody to mess with my butt, or I don't want to compete with all of the different people in the dating marketplace. I just want a straight person for like the reduced risk.
Portland. Point is,
You
in
guys
this
are taking that and like wrapping all that around like the term
AKK.
repulsive.
Oh, okay. AKA Batozai. Thank you for the 10
Ooh.
gifted memberships, and I see your super chats. I'll get to them in a second. But continue.
Lucrative
Aaron.
dream. Good for you guys. You're not as poor as I thought.
when a man says that as a gay man he's disgusted by women, right? Doesn't mean that he like he can't look at a woman, right? Because a lot of gay men actually have a large number of female friends. I know this might be shocking to you, but like that doesn't mean that he's disgusted by women. It means that he's disgusted by the idea of a sexual encounter with women. And so similarly, if a woman says that she's disgusted by bisexual men, what she's really saying is she's disgusted by a sexual encounter that is a coded bisexual sexual encounter.
That's such a chicken shit response. Once again,
It's not.
No,
What a butt with. That's
stop
fine.
Stop talking for a second.
It's okay.
For a second, there's no physical difference between a bisexual man and a heterosexual man. There's a difference between a man and a woman, and obviously gay men aren't attracted to fucking women. So you can't use these two as though they're one-to-one comparisons, because there's this fundamental difference here where like a woman isn't responding to the fucking like the physical body of a man with disgust because she's not attracted to men. She's responding to the knowledge that there's like a gay element to this man, even though she would otherwise find him attractive. These are like two fundamentally different things, and the fact that you still 2 hours in can't like reconcile the difference between them, it's fucking maddening, dude. You're smarter than that.
Okay. The disgust with the foot fetish does not mean, oh my god, how dare he like feet?
Hold on, let's get to know each other better. It's a new year. No, it's a new year. We're gonna try new things. Okay. Name one thing, one fetish you find personally disgusting. Go ahead.
Wait, is it that I personally?
Yeah, personally, you were if you found out your partner or potential partner had this fetish, you would be repulsed.
If they want to lick my armpit,
repulsed. Got you. Okay, Portland.
Poop stuff. Poop stuff is gross, guys.
Poop stuff is gross. That's true. Okay. What about you, Julie? You already said the butt stuff. What else? What repulses you?
All of them.
All the fetishes. Every single
all
fetishes.
of them.
Okay.
I don't like when people have weird kinks at all. Get away from me.
Well, what's a weird kink?
Kink shaming stream.
Anything outside of like vanilla sex, what's wrong with you, okay? Calm down. It's not that serious. Why are you acting like that? It's fucking weird.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Keep your perversions on the 4chan
but
boards where they belong.
Exactly. And away from me. Thank you.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that you're like morally opposed to those people. It just means that you're like, gross. I don't want it.
Yeah, you wouldn't think less of them
No,
as
no,
like.
I have like
person.
there's like a moral condemnation element to poop stuff. Absolutely, like
There's a moral condemnation. See that
it's bad.
Audacity. Thank you
Jesus
for the 50 memberships. I really
Christ.
appreciate you. You know what? You know what? You know what?
That's
We're going to hold on.
bullshit.
We're not going to talk about repulsion. We're going to talk about attraction. The more you give to me money-wise, the more attracted I am to you. Okay? I'm not gay. I'm not
happens every time you
bisexual.
have me
But
on, I
my
just
God, enough memberships and we can talk. Okay? That's all I'm saying.
$5 membership is a $5 membership. Yeah, interesting.
Wick, there's a corollary between you having me on and you receiving a super excessive amount of donations and compensation.
I'm just saying, everyone has a price. Okay?
Whereas for me, it is causative. I am the cause. Yeah.
They are voting with their dollars once again. Couldn't
Hold
be
on.
prouder.
Are you saying you would there? I bet you I could name a sum right now that for you two, Portland and Quibbles, that I could say I will give you this much money if you both fuck, and you would both say yes. There is a number. I don't know what it is, but there is a number where I say I would give you X amount of dollars if you guys fuck, and you would.
Yeah. There's a dollar amount.
So crazy to me. What's wrong with people?
What, you don't think that's true of you, Julie, as well?
No,
That's true of everyone.
absolutely not.
Everyone on this
Absolutely
earth.
not. Absolutely
There's
not.
always a number.
What
There's
was your name
always
again?
a number. Go on.
Julie. Okay, Julie.
There's not always a number. I refuse.
$1 trillion.
No, because that's what the fuck am I gonna do with $1 trillion? This is just
You're
stupid
gonna
now.
buy
I don't
an
need that.
Buy a country?
democracy,
I don't
start a
need
small
that. I don't
company,
buy a
and
country. What the fuck am I gonna do with the whole country? I don't want to deal
You're
with
You
all
gonna
that.
cannot be Canadian
It's a lot of
anymore.
Own everything.
I don't want to
you
deal with all that.
You can. Okay. Hey, I've decided that I'm vaguely interested in the NFL. I'm just gonna own it now. I've decided
No,
that
this is stupid. I don't want to be in charge of all that shit. I don't want
Okay,
someone coming
I
back
just-
to me
I'm gonna
bitching about some issue.
down because fuck that. This is a
That's
stupid,
crazy.
boring waste of people's time.
This is crazy. I'm not saying that it's like morally good, but I am saying that like absolutely there exists a number for everyone. I don't believe you for a second. That's silly.
Pretty comfortable in the fact that I know there's not a number for me. I would not do that.
Would you do it to
Try to
save it?
talk
Hold
you
on. Would you do it to save a child?
No,
Right.
I would let them die in front of my
Let
eyes.
them die.
In front of my eyes.
Fair enough. No, that's a principled stance.
I'm not fucking some stranger to let someone else live. Fucking die, bitch. The hell?
Okay.
I'm
On the-
so glad that we got a woman's perspective.
We
This was
did.
really helpful.
No, it is because again, like we have the survey. 81% of women agree with Julie. To be clear,
Yeah.
81%
I think
of
it's
women.
I think it's like
wouldn't
the
date a
idea is men who are bisexual tend to have more feminine tendencies. Don't want to date a feminine man.
What are some examples of feminine tendencies that you think bisexual people have?
They touch dick.
That is
Feminine tendency. Okay.
Okay, so it's just the gay thing, right? Like it's just that there's like this gay thing that they do, and that is a deal breaker. Like
It's just that I don't know. There's probably other feminine things. I can't think of anything right now. I didn't like think about this at all. I just hopped in, but I'm sure there's like some more shit behind the scenes that actually.
Would you say that like that's like at least like a low tier homophobia kind of response, right? Like
Probably a little bit, but everyone's a little bit,
Okay, cool.
you know, everyone's a little bit fucking stupid
She's
for
right.
some reason.
She's right, and I win, and I accept Quibble's concession, and the conversation has reached its natural conclusion. Julie was right, and
I do agree.
Women are a little bit homophobic.
yeah.
Men are a little bit misogynist. Okay.
See? Once again, a woman shockingly makes a great
But
point.
is that immoral?
I'm just kidding.
I think it depends on how you act on your feelings. It depends.
Well, Portland specifically, is that immoral? Is that immoral? Let's say that it is homophobia.
Maybe a little
I don't
bit.
think it is, to be clear. But let's say it is. Is that immoral?
A little.
A
You know,
little. It's a
it's-
little immoral. You're saying Julie not wanting to date bisexual men is a little immoral.
It's a little.
Given that Julie is a homophobe,
Homophobia as a concept comes from like a place that is at the very least a little bit of like a moral flaw built into a lot of our underlying machinery. Like the disgust response to
So she's
things
less
that
of a good person than a woman who would date a bisexual man.
well, it's not just a
depends
woman.
on the controlling for every other factor, yes, she is a worse person than an exact copy of her that is also open to dating bisexual men. Just a smidge worse of a person.
I will say I'm completely comfortable with that. That does not bother me at all.
Let's flesh this out, though. We've established that Julie is a homophobe and that she hates the gays, right?
I don't hate the gays. Hold on. You're getting a little crazy here. I don't hate the gays.
Jeb stands backstage if you.
I
Julie
see
hates
him.
the gays.
Carry on.
Okay.
Hate the gays.
Because Julie hates the gays, is it better for her to nevertheless have resentful, horrible sexual relations with the bisexuals who she hates because of their gaydom, partial gaydom? Is that better for the gays than were she to simply
Should I hate fuck the gays? Is that what you're saying right now? Is it better if I hate fuck the gays?
Is that better? Is that a healthy society? Is that a less homophobic society that she has hate sex with the gays?
Answer the question, Portland.
Oh, was that for me?
Yes, of course it's for you.
My bad. Yes. Or no. What was the question?
Yes or no? Like, were you not listening to the... Okay.
Okay, I'll ask you
for a second.
Let me be a little more concise than Quibbles is. Quibbles, here, I love you, buddy,
game.
but you're not concise, okay? So I'll be concise.
Okay. I'll be very concise.
Is it better for society, right, if Julie has sex with bisexual men even though she doesn't want to?
Probably societally neutral.
Neutral, but what if I know I don't want to, so I treat them like shit because of it?
Well, that would be bad.
But that's
treat someone badly.
But that's the thing. I'm like leading people on. I'm having sex with them knowing I don't like them. So is that now worse? Than if I just don't have sex with them?
Thank you for the 10 gifted memberships, aka Batozai. Thank you. Okay, carry on.
To be nice and utilitarian about it, it depends on whether the sex makes you feel worse than it makes the other person feel like good. So, like, if you are a -6 on the emotional scale and he's a +7 after the fact, you've got to take one for the team here. I'm sorry.
I'm leading them on and I'm making them think that we're in love, and then I'm just destroying their life at the end of it.
It's still a consequentialist question. Like, at the end of the day, is the pleasure that they received from getting led on by you?
It's terrible. It's terrible.
They're
having the worst time of their life.
Ugh. Okay.
Obviously,
don't
bad
do
at
that,
sex
then.
with the gay because she's a woman, right? She's not willing to allow them to play with her buttocks, and therefore she's bad at sex because she won't let them play with her buttocks.
I think bi dudes will still fuck you like fucking. I almost said normally, but that sounds crazy.
No, you're like, oh my god, you mean a bisexual man might be willing to have like seemingly heterosexual sex with a woman? This is completely out of. This is impossible.
She has this undergirding bigotry, which is associated partially with the way that she's going to have sex, which means that the sex is going to be inferior to the sex that they could have with a woman who is actually interested in having sex with a bisexual man. And also, it means that the quality of the relationship is going to be inferior because she'll constantly be having these snide I'm sorry, you don't like the word undergirding. The snide sort of like facets of her relations with this guy because she has this undergirding, she has this bigotry to her. And because she hates the gays, that's going to obviously be something that eventually he sort of finds out, but he's going to find it out after he's already fallen in love with her, with her womanly power.
You say the word undergirding in your real life. I'm just curious.
A lot.
Is this like one that gets pulled from
people
the
have talked
in every conversation?
My real life friends have told me that I say it a lot.
Know what that word means, but you almost kind of look like an undergird. I don't know.
You look like an undergird.
Like, I feel like it fits. Like,
what does okay, first of all, what do you think an I'm just curious. If you, not knowing don't look it up. No Googling. Let me see your hands so you know you're not Googling.
I just feel, you know how
give
like
us
some things just fit?
Definition of undergird.
Okay, my back wall here is filled with a rat shrine to Charlie Kirk. I look like a rat shrine to Charlie Kirk, right? Do you see how that makes sense? It just fits. There's no reason behind
this
it.
This is woman math, gang. Girl math is at play. This is what we're
Am
hearing.
I wrong? Am I literally wrong, though?
I don't know. I don't understand,
it's just that it's
right?
interesting to see things.
If you don't know what the word means, it's just like a word.
Yeah, there's like
So hold on, stop. You can usually understand words through the context.
No,
So we hear words that we don't know all the time, and we
No,
through
throw
the
the
context
context
of how
out
that
the
word
window.
is used. We
Throw it out the
learn.
window. No.
We're not throwing
Throw it out the
context.
window.
We're not defenstrating the word context. Okay.
So,
You
see,
understood
this is why
what
men are the worst.
defenstrating.
You guys don't know how to have fun. You guys take things too seriously.
real quick. What is a Charlie Kirk rat shrine? Like it.
Give us
It's
a close
it's
up.
rats and it's Charlie Kirk.
Right, but like, okay, I'm bad at art.
Yeah.
What's the symbology? What is it meant
He
to...
is the rat king. I debated him on the whatever podcast about abortion, and he signed a book for me that said ban porn. And then my friend from America drove up to Canada to visit me and put this up for Halloween.
That was sexism and racism toward Italians until a non-Italian woman came into backstage. Wick didn't draw me in here, but once a non-Italian,
We needed
notably,
to
balance
balance the
came
scales,
in,
and I feel
got pulled.
Katia's gonna back Portland up, and so I wanted to make sure Portland had a little bit of an ally. Okay.
Oh, good.
Am I the non-Italian here? Sorry, I lost my voice somewhat, so sorry about that.
Yep,
but am
you're
I
the
the
non-Italian.
non-Italian?
Yeah.
I'm half Sicilian, so nope.
We snuck one in, Wick. We snuck two in.
Yeah.
Okay.
your
Well,
racism
let
didn't
me
work.
ask you, Katia. Do you think it's homophobic for Julie not to want to date a bisexual man?
I think that a lot of the reasons that one can give for not wanting to, and some of the reasons she's given plays into stereotypes that are like, I mean, not all of them, like I'd say, like homophobic, but I mean, biphobia is also a distinct thing.
Sure.
Because yeah, generally,
So
like
she's
a lot of the time when
biphobic.
people are
I will say
not
I am
comfortable.
bisexual, so I don't know if there's biphobia playing here. It's probably homophobia playing here.
To
You
be
know,
fair,
Thank you.
can
I'm
cite-
saying the arguments can play into those stereotypes.
Okay,
not
yeah. It's just because
yeah. But you can definitely be biphobic and also be bisexual, particularly in terms of like biphobia against the opposite sex.
I like
Wow,
women,
you
and
are-
I'm a misogynist. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Good point.
It's
See,
what
I get
I
to be
lost
the
the plot.
opposite. I get to be the opposite of her because I'm also bisexual, but you know, alas, in a relationship with a man who was really born that way, and by that way I mean straight. Darn.
that's tough. Get rid of him.
hate to see it.
Oh, stop.
I'm joking.
So, Jeff10, you've been begging. You have some thoughts, I assume? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have all the right thoughts. Listen, okay, that 81% of women not wanting to date bi guys isn't like real. Okay, what they really mean is I'll date a bi guy, just don't be so gay about it. Okay, because it's like saying how many women want to date short guys. Like, who's gonna raise their fucking hand? Nobody. But if you say, oh, who's gonna date a hot, rich, really nice to you short guy who is going to fucking treat you right and raise your kids well, who just happens to be 5'7", most of them will say yes. The issue is when you lead with the question of, do you want to date this guy? The only thing you know about him is a thing that might make him be just a little bit less attracted to you. It's like, oh, he's attracted to men as well. It's like, that's a weird context to put it. So if a guy is like just being super gay about being bi, of course, a woman's not going to want to date him. But if like, if Julie was on like a bunch of dates with a dude and like he brought it up in casual conversation without her having to ask that he had like fucked around with dudes in college, but like he was a Chad and she liked doing stuff with him and he liked all of her very boring vanilla sex and all the other rat shriny things that she enjoys and they have a good time, she's probably not going to turn him down because he's bi. It's just how much of you is defined by being bi? Like how gay are you going to be about your bi-ness, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's just what I was saying earlier. Is that if you just are acting like feminine, like I don't like I like men and women. Why would I date a feminine man? I could date a feminine woman and a masculine man. I
Can you
don't.
give us an impression, just for can you give us an impression of what you mean by an effeminate gay bisexual man? Can you like act it out for us?
boy.
Give us kind of like a little.
It's like the video that's like the making copies move. I'm gay. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so. I think so. I don't think I can give you a. Sorry, I'm fucking with this straw right now. And
Yeah, that's what a bisexual man would do. True. Go ahead.
Oh my god,
Continue.
they love to
Yep.
fidget with phallic-shaped items.
You
It's
just
just
gotta
in their
pull it.
blood.
You
They
pull it
can't
back,
help
but don't pull it back too hard.
I
the whole
think it's like a
thing.
specific. Like I can't give like a specific like action maybe that they would do or anything. I think it's just like if you're not feeling it because you're not feeling it. Like they do something and you're like, oh, that was kind of like I'm not really interested in that.
This is like what I was trying to say.
If you're willing to take dick, you might be more likely to do things that I'm not interested in.
Right. So like it's not bisexuality, it's that like you see bisexuality as like a proxy for feminine behaviors, just like people will see like yeah, but it's not an accurate or effective filtering mechanism.
No,
it's not about whether or not it's
I mean, it kind of is.
No, no, you're wrong.
They are definitely more likely to want their asshole played with if they're bi.
Ineffective to look at things as systems that are imperfect sifts.
Hold on, Portland. I will. Okay, if I have here, give me a second. Hold on. Okay. $100 right now. Okay, if I said
that's like 110 Canadian.
I don't know Canadian math or girl math, but we're gonna ignore the woman for the moment. This is to Portland because Portland, you keep saying right, like you can't say that, you can't know that. If I were to point out a bisexual man, right, such as Jebtan, and I asked you, right, do you think that if you guess this question right, I will give you $100, and then I asked you, do you think he wants his butthole played with? What's the answer you think is most likely to get you that $100?
Tops and bottoms in gay relationships, and that's a
okay,
pretty,
but
like,
no. That's
well understood binary, right? Like there are obviously
you are silly if you don't say I think that the bisexual man wants his butt played with. You were silly.
No, I think that like literally you're talking about like maybe a slightly better chance, but not enough that it should be applied as like a filtering mechanism to vet out people that you might be willing to date. Like there are better ways to get to that piece of information about sexual compatibility without filtering for everyone that is even like a little bit bisexual, so you can avoid even having to get to that next layer of disambiguation. It's just not that you're not going to get some utility out of it sometimes, but that it's not going to be an effective filter that is going to compensate well for the things that you're likely to miss out on.
The reason I disagree is what I was saying before. Is she's not walking up to dudes immediately and being like, "Are you bi?" And they're like, "Yeah." And she's like, "All right, fuck off, bye." She's saying she doesn't want to date bi guys, and the way that practically manifests is if you are so bi that she notices, she doesn't want to date you. And I think if a guy is so bi that she notices, they are definitely more likely to want their butt played with, because it is more of their the having sex with men is a lot more of their identity than it would be with a bi guy, where that she wouldn't even notice, where it comes up randomly in conversation that he sucked a couple cocks.
Yeah, but you're extremely unlikely to establish like a strong romantic and physical compatibility and chemistry with those characteristics in mind. The whole reason that like I've been pressing on this as like a filtering mechanism that's not very effective is because we can imagine scenarios where like you're very attracted to someone, you're ready to have sex with them, nothing else changes except for the revelation that they have like a bisexual dating history. Even the initial tweet that we were talking about was like, it's repulsive, the thought of being with a bisexual man, and that has like a
once again, hold on, Portland. If again,
be.
in that same scenario, if I find out that the woman I'm about to sleep with that I'm super attracted to, that thinks she's super hot, I'm ready to go, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, last week for my birthday I had a gangbang." I'm suddenly like, no, thank you.
We compared these earlier, and even Quibbles agreed that like comparing like your dating history with individual partners versus like group sex, it's apples and oranges, because group sex is like
poly is a sexuality.
Extremely distinct from like individual romantic relationships, even if those romantic relationships are heterosexual, like bisexual, homosexual, like they're distinct from group sex in their like categorization, and they have a whole different set of like behaviors and connotations.
I think that being poly, right, is a distinct sexually.
You can be poly
the
and
same
like,
as
you can be poly and only have like individual partners, or you can be poly and like have a polycule, like an open group. There's no like individual set of characteristics that like
a poly person who is engaged in polyamorous sex is a deal breaker, right? For a
you
lot of people.
understand that like you're talking about different categories of thing when you bring up group sex. And Julie,
I don't think so.
for all the, time that Quibbles and I and you have spent arguing about this, she was on the panel for like 10 minutes and has already like agreed with my characterization of homophobia. She's owned
She's a
like, yeah, there's a
woman.
little bit
She
of a
doesn't
homophobic
count.
bias built into what I'm saying.
Right.
And
So,
you
I want
are
to say
arguing
something,
that
but I can't jump in.
Hey,
'cause I
I'm just
can't.
a woman though.
You're
You
so
can't
close.
take me
You're so
seriously.
True.
You're so close. Okay,
Okay.
so there's two different groups.
Hold on,
Stop doing
hold on.
that.
Katya's trying to get in, and she has.
No, wait. I just
Yeah.
want to. Please.
Go ahead, then I'll go after you.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. You've just described two different groups. One of them is the Julies. They are the intense homophobes who hate the gays.
Okay,
Like
this
Julie.
is crazy. Get my name out of this. What the fuck?
They hate the gays.
Okay. These are the
This is
Julies.
insane.
Over here are the normal functional
Over
members.
here.
Unlike Julie, who don't hate gay people, right? You don't want the Julies to be having sex with the bisexual men because they will destroy the lives of those bisexual men on the basis of their hatred and animosity. And you also don't want the ones who are doing it not for homophobic reasons to be having sex with these men because they have these other issues that they're using this as a sifting mechanism, and that's perfectly valid as well. So in both cases, it makes no sense for them to be having sex with these guys that they don't want to have sex with. Yeah?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Okay, Katya, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that people who people who don't want to have sex with somebody, we shouldn't have sex with people we don't want to have sex with.
Correct.
But what I was gonna ask too is, it seems like a lot of the stuff that gets like talked about, right, in this conversation is stuff that's not analogous. I mean, like Portland started off saying it like a minute ago. Like people keep bringing up gangbangs or polyamory. But like the number of people you're willing to be with, it shouldn't really have a part in this debate because this debate was like for people in monogamous relationships. Obviously, if they're poly, they're not compatible with you being in a monogamous relationship. Like that's right out the door. And secondarily, this like butthole obsession.
Hold on. You can be poly but agree to be in a monogamous relationship, just like you can be
Right, but I'm
bisexual and agree
saying
to be with only one of the sexes.
if it's a
It's the
deal
same.
breaker, like if it's like a deal breaker for you, as far as being poly, like I want to be with multiple people. If you're basically like the difference that I see is like if you're bisexual and you're in a monogamous relationship with somebody who is of the opposite sex or whatever, then in that situation, the fact that you're attracted to the same sex is like fully on the shelf. But if you're polyamorous and you want to be in a relationship with one person, but you don't actually, you want to be with multiple people, you're being with multiple people. So that's kind of not on the shelf, like you're with other people.
Yeah, I don't think of polyamory as an orientation. It's an organization style for relationships. You can be polyamorous as long as you're in a relationship where that is like the paradigm you've set up. But like a person walking around by themselves is not polyamorous. They're just single.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
And we're
okay,
going to
when
wrap
we're
this up soon, but go ahead. Yeah.
how we're going to decipher future behaviors of other people, the best thing that we have to go off of is past behavior. And so if I found out that last weekend someone just had sex with 100 people, the chances that they're going to decide, actually, I just want to settle down with just Quibbles and be monogamous with him going forward is very low, right? Even if they say it, I just don't believe them. And similarly, if someone has as a history of having had lots of sex with men and also lots of sex with women, even if they're saying, I will never even be remotely flirtatious with men ever again in my life, I will never be even remotely interested in the butthole ever again in my entire life, I just don't believe them. And
you're gesturing to promiscuity, not to
Yeah.
compatibility. Like you're
No.
to
I mean,
That's
that can be part of that can be part
That's
of
part of a
compatibility.
stereotype.
no,
it's
It's
not
okay to
stereotype.
stereotype, though. It's okay to stereotype.
I'm just pointing out that it is.
We
a
have
lot
to
of times
we have
unfair.
to stereotype whenever we are making snap judgments about whether or not we want to pursue somebody.
not
And
about
if you're
whether-
never willing to stereotype,
Whether or not you
you'll
get in
never
a
find anyone.
relationship shouldn't be a snap judgment. Oh my lord.
It
all
is
of-
in 99% of cases because most of the people you see, you choose not to be in a relationship with. That is the snap judgment.
The only argument
people
I
you
have made is
you
for
choose.
Snap
acknowledgement of
judging
a
you
bias.
all right now. Okay.
Okay, let me do a real quick thing to prove what Katia said wrong. Quibbles, would you
Yeah.
want to be in a relationship with me?
No.
He just made a snap judgment. I think it's the right call because he doesn't like men, but he just made a snap
Yeah.
judgment that I'm not going to have a beautiful pussy between my legs that he's
What
going
I
to love.
meant. I don't. That's not what I meant. I meant when
Yeah.
people go into a relationship, compatibility and determining compatibility is usually a result of communication, and that's why people go on dates and they decide,
don't
do I want to
think
pursue this person?
Wants to go
Yeah,
on a
but
date.
before the date process, there is usually a series of sort of exclusionary strategies, especially women have to use because of the sheer pool of people they have available to them. In order to decide who you want to have a date with in the first place, you're doing a lot of snap judgments to exclude big sections of that wide swath of men.
Okay, I mean, but that a lot of that's what you are attracted to rather than you're just whittling it down.
Well, and that's she's saying she's attracted to vanilla sexual behavior, and she has correctly identified that bisexual men are less likely to be into solely vanilla sexual behavior because she doesn't consider men having sex with men as vanilla sexual behavior under that definition. So she is saying the same way that if I want a big, strong guy who's going to protect me, I'm not going to be with a 5'2" skinny guy. She has decided that if she wants a guy who likes vanilla sexual behavior, she is not going to go for a bi guy because they're less likely to want just that.
Julie,
And she
what
has
is
Takes
hold
the
on, hold on,
5'2"
Julie.
skinny guys out of this.
Excluding
It was a
bisexual
hypothetical.
people.
It was a,
And
I'm a
more
5'2"
going
skinny guy.
for
There you go.
and more going for people who seem to be more vanilla. Like is it the case
Same thing.
that you've got a
Yeah.
bunch of bisexual guys knocking down your door and you have to sift through all of them to find the one like straight guy? Because
Yeah,
like it seems like
Of course.
No. No.
I want to live her life then. Oh my god.
Why is your answer
No.
no, Julie? Explain.
Julie, you are very
Hold on, let us.
attractive.
There's no way
Let Julie
that there's
explain.
a
Julie.
ton of bi dudes knocking on my door right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
It's
but
more,
I don't think the majority of men that are like matching with me are bisexual. If they are,
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't like had a conversation with them to know. But like, if I found out, I think I'd probably end the conversation there unless we were already like deep into it.
That's the thing. Truly bisexual men are a small, disproportionately sexually adventurous group of men. And so she is saying that is a small group of men, meaning it doesn't hurt me very much to exclude them. And they are disproportionately sexually adventurous, which is something I'm selecting against. And so it just makes logical sense to select against that group of people because the risk is low and the reward is high.
I just think
It
you'd
gets-
select against other groups of people way before you get
Let
to
me
that
make a little
one.
money.
Well, yeah, she did.
Hold
I'm
on.
sure she does.
I
but
select
that's
against a
one of it.
ton.
Hey,
Yeah.
let me make them a little money. I'm selecting. I'm making snap judgments about what we're going to talk about right now. $5 for the Trib One to say, to be clear, being straight is homophobic. It's about harm. The fear around being labeled is cringe as fuck. Not gonna lie. Again, just be fair. Preference is prejudice. $5 more. Are you a
Wait, wait.
homophobe if you don't? We'll engage with that in a second. Are you a homophobe if you don't want to be with a gay or bi person? That asked alone, the answer is no. But not wanting to be gay with a gay is homophobic. And then $2 from Mr. Middleman. I think a majority of people think bi equals gay in denial. Okay,
Yeah.
now we can address this.
Which that's
I think for
true, I
men.
guess,
I
but
think
that's
it
not a
equals-
necessary thing.
I don't think bi equals gay in denial. That's crazy.
I already
make
kind of
sense to
said
me.
like I think that there's some portion of this group that's excluding that's doing so for good reasons.
$5 more
There's some portion of them that
from-
are homophobic. I gotta go. It was pleasure
Okay.
having this
Always
conversation.
a pleasure. We got to wrap this up. But $5 more
Give
from
way-
Adam Unfriended to say panels need smarter voices like Short Fat Otaku. He's a bisexual man and would add value. Try to get him on my show tomorrow about the groomer gangs. Gang, it's been a pleasure. It's been fun. It's been great. I want to just let everyone know Quibbles in Portland. Their links are on my YouTube channel. You can go check them out if you want. Thank you, Katia, Julie, I'm sorry, and Jebtan for jumping on. I know. Forgive
No
me.
way!
It's
There's no way. That's actually insane.
I apologize.
We have beef now.
I will sacrifice to you
Upset.
later. No, we can fight. This year could be the year we fight. That's fine. But here we go. Tomorrow we're going to talk about something a little more serious. We're going to talk about the grooming gang scandal in Britain. We're gonna have Loner Box on. We're gonna have Counterpoints on. And if we can get sort of had a taco to weigh in, we're absolutely gonna have on. The huge failure of on all levels of the system over in Britain is worth exploring and worth talking about. So that's going to be what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Next week, we're going to have a panel on Dungeons and Dragons, okay? Colonialism and D&D, whether or not that's acceptable behavior. It should be crazy. It should be fun. We got Harmony Ginger coming on. We got Jack of the Northlands coming on. We're going to have a few others.
Is that one full?
It is, but
Okay.
unfortunately. Okay,
No worries.
with that, though, I'll see you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to rate inside Kit Kat. She was kind enough to come and stream with us a little bit, so.
Yes. All right.
See you, everybody. You're homophobic for not wanting to
Bye-bye.
date me, Quibble.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, ladies. Okay, thanks for coming. It was fun.
Bye.
I still didn't get to ask Quibbles the one thing I wanted to ask.
What did you want to
which is,
ask?
what is with the butthole obsession?
What is with the butthole obsession? You know what? I will DM him and ask him, and I'll let you know.
Well,
Okay?
no. It wasn't just like him being like, oh, bisexual men would be more interested in like other people like wanting to do butt stuff with them. But the idea that they'd be more likely to want to do butt stuff to women, like straight men wouldn't. Oh my gosh, what the heck? Has he met straight men? Holy shit!
No, but I gotta end this treatment. No Quibbles.
right,
We're not gonna add you
bye.
back because this is gonna. Nope. I gotta go. I love you all, and I'll
Darn,
talk to you guys
alright.
later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.